You look at his coaching style, right? You watch him on the sideline in the national team at the moment, like what Ashish was saying. It's comical. You're watching the current World Cup. You don't see many coaches at the high level, like running up and down, calling every play-by-play. You'll see that at youth football. Then you'll see coaches trying to micromanage every pass, every decision. You watch him on the sideline in the national team at the moment, like what Ashish was saying. It's comical. He's trying to tell every player what to do because there's no plan before. What Ashley said is 100% right in terms of, is he a progressive coach? No. Does he know about modern football and modern tech ways of coaching? No.
When was the last time AIFF followed a foolproof concept or a process to appoint a coach in Indian football? It's nearly 7 years ago. That is 2019 when we appointed Steve Match. जब आप जॉब के लिए अप्लाई करते हो ना, किसी भी कोच, किसी भी लेवल पे, क्लब लेवल पे भी, जब जॉब के लिए अप्लाई करते हो तो पहला काम जो अच्छा कोच होता है ना, वो एक प्रेजेंटेशन बनाता है. आप बता दीजिए खलीद जमील ने कौन सी प्रेजेंटेशन बनाई थी इंटरव्यू के लिए और कौन सी प्रेजेंटेशन दी है उन्होंने AIFF को कि मैं नेशनल टीम के साथ क्या करूंगा. तो मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि ऑलरेडी कोच डिसाइड है तो आप ड्रामा मत कीजिए ना, सीधा अपॉइंट कर दीजिए.
In the media, it's always the players who end up getting the blame, and it's the people behind the players who are making the decisions that actually make them look bad because they're trying to follow a coach's instruction. If you don't follow that, you're not going to be in the next squad.
There are people in federation जिनको 15 साल हो चुके हैं फेडरेशन के अंदर, जो 15 साल पहले भी कुछ नहीं कर रहे थे और आज भी कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं. वो निकालने की हिम्मत भी होनी चाहिए ना. जस्ट बिकॉज किसी लीडरशिप में ये नहीं है कि इसको निकाल देंगे, हमारा बुरा कर रहा है, उनको डर रहता है बाहर जाके मैं एक्सपोज कर देगा.
If somebody wants to go out there and say, look, I'm building a squad that's going to help India compete in the 2034 World Cup, come and join this bandwagon. Okay, from a business point of view, it's great.
But if we present it in a way, oh, we have won a European treble, no one has done it, we are world champions. What is world champions?
There's seedings amongst Scotia Cup. You can find your level where you want to play and come back and say you're U14 champion. There'll be multiple U14 champions because there's different levels.
Where did we play?
It wasn't at the top level. So let's not forget, these were not 90-minute 11v11 games. Qualifying for the World Cup, you're going to be playing full-on 90 minutes, 11v11.
Pakistan diaspora of player is better than us. Their player are playing a better level than us. So you have to have a solid domestic system and then go to the round 3 of the World Cup qualifiers. जब राउंड 3 जाओगे ना, then you can see, can you call up players who have a chance of representing that particular country जहाँ वो रह रहा है and India. Then you ask him to pick India over that country. आप 15 PIOs ले आओ, सेम कोचिंग स्टाफ रखो, मैं बता रहा हूँ आप इससे बुरा खेलोगे जब भी खेलो. मैं ये बोलना चाहता हूँ कि as a fan, you do your job, which is go to your local football match and watch it on a ground. It's easier to be a fan on a Twitter, on a Instagram, and on a Facebook, say I'm a football fan, and then you have never watched a local football match in your state, in your city, or a district.
Starting with Ashish bhai, recently I came up, आपका tweet देखा था मैंने after the second friendly that we played against Tajikistan, and you have been a long serving football fan as a journalist running inside Indian football show for a long time, and you tweeted out, this is the first time in the last 15 years that I have struggled to feel connected with Indian football. Tell us
with the Indian football team, I will say.
Yeah, with Indian football team. What's the reason? Tell us a little bit about this.
See, when you see your team playing, right, we know that what is the standard of Indian football team. I'm not expecting India to win the World Cup or qualify for the World Cup. Sometimes I'm expecting some basic things, and a fight, a will to play. If you can't see a will to play or a fight, then I don't know how you can connect with a team, right? We are seeing a World Cup is going on. We're seeing underdogs team also, who are playing, but they have a will to fight. They're trying to play a football. Our team, and we're seeing it for last 1 year, right? We are winning 1-0. Somehow we score a scrappy goal. And since then, we can see our players going down, our defender hitting our goalkeeper. They're just tackling each other. They're using every second to waste the time. And then, our coach goes to the next level. 67 minute, he takes out his number 9, puts his another center back in, and then there are famous screenshots which you can see on the internet that you are playing with 7-3-0 kind of formation. 11 men behind the ball. See, and it's a useless friendly, by the way. It's nothing to do with that you are going to qualify for any major tournament, or you are playing in a big match that it's a do or die. It's a useless friendly. And at that friendly also, we are, we are treating it like as a World War game, right? That we have somehow win it. And when the teams who have not qualified for the World Cup, you start on Unity Cup, for example. We played Jamaica, we played, Zimbabwe, and there's another team, Nigeria. These all three are big, decent footballing nation, bigger than India for sure. And they have not qualified for the World Cup. What they have done now is they have reset their national team, selection. They have brought in youngsters. They are trying to prepare for the next qualifier cycle. And what we have done, Unity Cup, similar performance, similar setup, everything remains same.
मतलब आप एक्सपेक्ट
Even
कर रहे थे कि यूनिटी कप में कुछ बेटर हो, या आप क्या
मैं
एक्सपेक्ट
ये
कर रहे थे
नहीं,
यूनिटी कप में?
मैं खालिद जमील की टीम से कोई टिकी टाका फुटबॉल एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करता. लोगों को लगता है कि मुझे प्लेइंग स्टाइल से प्रॉब्लम है. आई एम सेइंग वी हैव सीन अदर कोचेस आल्सो. फॉर एग्जांपल स्टीफन कॉन्स्टाइन, राइट? ही वाज नॉट नोन टू प्ले passing football, or a possession based
जी.
football. His 4-4-2 was more of keeping it compact. They were shaped, right? अब जैसे हमारे साथ ऑफ कोर्स टेक्निकल कोच हैं, तो ही विल एक्सप्लेन यू बेटर. देयर शुड बी एटलीस्ट 3 ब्लॉक्स, राइट? ऑफ प्लेइंग, कि आपका एक डिफेंस ब्लॉक, एक मिडफील्ड, एक फॉरवर्ड का अटैक का ब्लॉक है. तो एक कुछ टेक्टिकली दिखे तो पिच में कि और आई एम नॉट आस्किंग कि आप कोई बार्सिलोना की टैक्टिक्स लेके आइए. मतलब मैं कह रहा हूँ, जब मैंने स्टीफन का एग्जांपल दिया, उनकी कोई प्लेइंग स्टाइल के उस टाइम पे मेजर कंप्लेंट फैंस उनकी प्लेइंग स्टाइल से करते थे. बट आप स्टीफन की टीम भी देखोगे, गोज बैक टू 2018 या 2015, जब उन्होंने वर्स्ट टाइम पे टीम टेक ओवर की थी. मुझे याद हो नेपाल वाला प्लेऑफ, आई थिंक कोच प्रैड विल रिमेंबर दैट. वी आर 172 रैंक और हम वर्ल्ड कप राउंड 1 खेले थे नेपाल से. आई थिंक ही गॉट अराउंड 12 डे कैंप इन गुवाहाटी, playing before playing that first game. And we played Nepal, and Nepal was decent team at that time. We were struggling against Nepal in the 2013 SAF Championship in Nepal. I remember that. And आते ही उन्होंने कोई बहुत चेंजेस नहीं किए, बट बेसिक्स दिख रहे थे. विंगर अपना विंग वाला काम कर रहा था. There's a overlapping run happening, from both the fullbacks when we had a ball. When we are winning possession, we're trying to hit them very early counter attacks. ऐसा नहीं कि हम possession रख रहे. तो there was a playing style visible, there was technical style visible. आई थिंक वो मैं खालिद जमील के एक्सक्यूज कर सकता था विद द वर्ल्ड कप एशिया कप क्वालिफायर्स, बिकॉज मेरी उम्मीद ये थी कि यार एक करो मरो मैचेस है, यहाँ पे मैं मैचेस जीतने हैं. एंड वहाँ पे यू विल ठीक है, आप अल्ट्रा डिफेंसिव रिजल्ट ओरिएंटेड फुटबॉल खेल सकते हो. वहाँ पे मैं फिर भी एडजस्ट कर लेता. बट विद दीज फ्रेंडलीज, व्हेन आवर नेक्स्ट कॉम्पिटिटिव गेम इज इन नवंबर 2027, अगर मैं अभी भी वो करो मरो वाला एटीट्यूड रखूंगा और मैं फ्यूचर के लिए टीम प्रिपेयर नहीं करूंगा, वो चाहे खालिद जमील कोच हो चाहे कोई भी कोच हो, it's a problem with the overall message. I don't know what kind of message AIFF has given technical committee or a technical chairman or your technical director, because all are these people should be held accountable alongside Mr. Khalid Jamil. अगर आप टीम की प्लेइंग स्टाइल के ऊपर बात करते हो, ये कुछ मैसेजिंग क्लियर तो होनी चाहिए, राइट? कि
या जस्ट टू इंटरप्ट यू आउट देयर, मतलब जो आपने मेंशन किया अबाउट स्टीफन कॉन्स्टेंटाइन के व्हेन ही वाज विद द टीम, द बेसिक्स ऑफ द टीम वाज गुड, के जो विद द प्लेइंग स्टाइल, विद जो प्लेयर्स वगैरह अपने रोल को अच्छी तरह प्ले कर रहा है, डू यू थिंक दैट देयर इज अ डिक्लाइन इन टर्म्स ऑफ द क्वालिटी ऑफ द प्लेयर्स back in the time which Stephen Constantine had to the time when Khalid Jamil has, and that is what Khalid Jamil is trying to capitalize on, the quality जो मिल रहा है उनको उतना ही कर रहा है, ऐसा कुछ लग रहा है क्या?
I think मेरा आंसर मुझे पता है. Prad is also here. I think technical ability of Indian players has gone up since then time. Soumik Dey was a left back. If I'm not forgetting it, he was a left back. If you compare Soumik Dey and Akash Mishra right now, जमीन आसमान का अंतर in terms of quality, right? Because Jeru was a winger. ये कोई प्लेयर उस टाइम पे कोई बहुत बढ़िया टेक्निकल प्लेयर्स नहीं थे. अगर आप उस टाइम पे जाके देखोगे तो आप विकास जयरू एंड चांगटे को कंपेयर करो, आपको टेक्निकल का मतलब फर्स्ट टच में ही जमीन आसमान का अंतर दिखेगा. तो कहीं ना कहीं कोच के ऊपर भी देखो इसीलिए सवाल उठता है, बिकॉज लिमिटेशंस पता होती है हर कोच को अपनी टीम की. आई एम श्योर खालिद जमील also know the limitation of his team, but इतनी ज्यादा लिमिटेशन नहीं जितनी खालिद जमील उसको दिखा रहे हैं through his tactics, through his playing style. I think technically अब इंडियन फुटबॉल में far better player हैं compared to 2015, 2016 when Stephen Constantine वापस आए थे. ठीक है, उनके बेसिक्स जो अभी के प्लेयर हैं उन्होंने जल्दी स्टार्ट किया अपना करियर कंपेयर टू दोस प्लेयर 15-16 में टीएफए सेलेक्ट होते थे फिर आते थे. तो वो तो यार कैसे बोल सकते हो, क्योंकि मैं कह रहा हूँ इंडिविजुअली अगर कंपेयर करने जाओगे एंड देन यू पुट द प्लेयर ऑन अ पैरेलली रखोगे, आपको खुद टेक्निकल डिफरेंस दिख जाएगा कि कितना टेक्निकल एडवांस हुआ है इन टर्म्स ऑफ फुटबॉल का भी और हमारे प्लेयर्स का भी. तो मैं ये तो यार, बट ये है कि somehow स्टीफन कॉन्स्टेंटाइन का सिस्टम ऐसा था कि विकास जयरू माइट बी लुकिंग बेटर ऑन विंग देन विक्रम प्रताप सिंह, राइट? बिकॉज विकास जयरू को पता था मुझे बॉल मिलेगी, मुझे सिर्फ क्रॉस डालना है, एंड ही वाज क्लियर अबाउट इट कि मुझे अपना फर्स्ट मैन बीट करना है, आई वांट टू पुट अ क्रॉस, एंड दोस क्रॉसेस वर काइंड ऑफ ब्रॉट द गोल्स फॉर इंडिया. अगर आप सुनील छेत्री और जेजे का करियर का ग्राफ देखोगे, सबसे ज्यादा गोल्स जो उन्होंने, उनका गोल स्कोरिंग फॉर्म कह लो या गोल स्कोरिंग चार्ट्स कह लो, The best came that during that period of 2017 to 2019 when we qualify for the Asia Cup, but उसमें qualifiers में भी गोल पड़े, friendlies में भी गोल पड़े, eventually India went on to the Asia Cup to score goals. तो ये दिखाता है कि even a limited playing style also उनके जो players थे उनको role clear था, ठीक है. एंड अगेन देखिए स्टीफन के टाइम पे भी लोगों को प्रॉब्लम थी प्लेयर सिलेक्शन के ऊपर कि ब्रैंडन का सिलेक्शन उस टाइम पे बहुत हॉट टॉपिक था, बट आई थिंक उनके लिए क्लियर था कि मुझे किस टाइप का प्लेयर चाहिए और मुझे उस पोजीशन में उस प्लेयर से क्या क्वालिटी चाहिए. उदांता का फॉर एग्जांपल वाज अ की प्लेयर फॉर स्टीफन, राइट. ही इज प्लेइंग ऑन द राइट विंग एंड उदांता का क्लियर था उस टाइम पे कि आई हैव टू ड्राइव विद द बॉल, बीट माय मैन, ट्राई टू गेट ऑन अ बाईलाइन एंड फाइंड जेजे एंड सुनील छेत्री इन द बॉक्स, एंड ही डिड इट कंटिन्यूअसली. और वो काफी उस टाइम पे क्लिप्स कटी थी. आई थिंक कोच प्राइड विल रिमेंबर दोस काउंटर अटैक क्लिप्स, जो उदांता, सुनील, जेजे लिंकिंग अप, क्विक काउंटर अटैक गोल्स. तो वो मैं कह रहा हूँ ये कोच को पता होता है, बट यहाँ पे मुझे लग रहा है कि खालिद जमील के मन में शायद ये है कि अपनी टीम को कुछ ज्यादा अंडरस्टिमेट कर रहे हैं कि हमारे बस का कुछ है ही नहीं, और या वो कुछ करवा नहीं पा रहे टीम से. टेक्निकली देख लो, आप जब ओवरऑल बात करते हो जो उस इकोसिस्टम के अराउंड है नेशनल टीम से, क्योंकि वो सब किसी के समझ में नहीं आया जो राहुल बेके का सब था रिसेंट गेम में. आई एम श्योर प्लेयर्स के समझ में भी नहीं आया कि क्यों किया गया वो सब. तो ये चीजें हैं, एंड टेक्निकली आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि आप प्लेयर बेकार हैं पहले से. पहले आई थिंक आप टेक्निकल इंडिविजुअली कंपेयर करोगे, एंड कोच प्राइड इज हियर, इज अ फार बेटर पर्सन देन मी टू आंसर यू दैट क्वेश्चन कि टेक्निकली कितना चेंज आया है from that era to this era, right? He was at that time with Bengaluru FC, उससे पहले शिलोंग लजोंग में काम कर रहे थे. तो core of those players playing for Stephen Constantine kind of, I'm sure he's seen in the coaching days in a club level. तो I think वो change आया है, and I think आप players पे blame नहीं डाल सकते कि how you're setting up your team, right? If you're setting your team as 7 defender in one line, that's not a player's fault. That's what coach somehow that's a coach mentality we are seeing on the pitch. That's what I believe.
Yeah, so I'll come to Pradhyum, but just to add to it and a follow-up question also, I'll first like to hear your thoughts on the national team performances, but also that since you have been with Ashley Westwood at Bengaluru FC, and some of his comments recently have been really, viral in the social media. It was a 3-month-old clip, but still, it a lot of fans have found it relevant after after our performance in the Unity Cup and in the Tajikistan friendlies. So, for example, seeing some statements like he doesn't know football or all of these things might be relevant in terms of more of a meme and funny thing and some personal issues, but then what he mentioned that he's not the right person to lead India in a long term, this is also something he mentioned in that. So do you think Ashley Westwood made sense, and what has been your understanding of the national team under Khalid Jamil recently?
Okay. Look, I think first of all, Ashley's comments on Joe's podcast, as with a lot of the things, as in, even when I appeared on your podcast, people take the clips which are the sound bites and then put them on social media. People should, if they really want to understand, listen to the whole podcast. I watched the whole podcast, and Ashley's well entitled to his opinion. He was asked for his opinion, and he's given his opinion, and I gave a very similar opinion to the Times of India when I was asked at the time of his appointment. I said, it's not a progressive signing as a coach. If India's looking to sort of say, let's move forward, let's move with the times, it wasn't the best option. But if the technical committee had a mandate which said, you can only sign an Indian coach, our budget is only this much, then, their options were limited. And at that time, possibly amongst whoever the 3 or 4 that might have been interviewed, I don't know how many they interviewed properly, he was possibly the best option. But it was never, if people who followed Indian football since Khalid's Mumbai City days, right? You look at coaches, you want to see whether, are they successful? Do they win a lot of trophies as coaches, right? Like which Ashley had done. Or coaches who develop players. You look at coaches players under them have gone on from being just a second division I-League player and gone on to play ISL. And for the national team, there are coaches who develop and make individual players better. I don't think Khalid really ticks both those bills. Yes, he won the I-League with Aizawl FC, impressive feat. But
no, but
again,
if you could deep dive, if you you said he doesn't fit into that role. If you could just deep dive,
that's what I'm saying. He doesn't. Yeah. In those two ways, he doesn't really make the players better. The players he had at Aizawl were players who were developed through the ecosystem of Mizoram football, right, and Aizawl football. He didn't make any of them significantly better. Don't forget, that was a very shortened season. There were very few teams in the I-League that season, and because of ISL, it was a short season, and so a lot of it is taken out of context. Yes, it was a fairy tale victory, right, but you look at the way those teams played, right? It was still, I mean, I've coached against him, and I know if his team ever went 1-0 up, one after the other, as your team is counterattacking or trying to attack, one player would fall down and hold his hamstring, right? Behind the ball. And in those days, the referee would blow the whistle, stop. And this was like, I've played against teams in those days where all 11 players have held their hamstring at some point or the other. And the referee would stop each time and would restart with a drop ball.
So what you're mentioning right now, and saw a similar clip of this back in the time when Ashley Westwood's Bengaluru FC was playing against Mumbai FC, and Khalid did a similar stunt out there as well. Where an empty bottle was
but a
thrown in the
bottle boomerang, right?
See. Yeah, you can clearly see. We'll add the clip to on top here. You can clearly see that
I was there.
The bottle.
I was on the bench. I saw the bottle hit the top of the dugout.
So these are the tactics Khalid has passed on to the players.
And look, like I said, I've been on the sideline when I was at Shillong and coaching against him. And the moment if they're 1-0 up and you're counterattacking, right? Or even you're attacking, you've got the ball and you're going to go past. He'll be shouting at a player on his team who's behind the ball, not even ahead of the ball, Girja, right? And he was known as the Girja tactics. There's this expression of the ghost of Baliwadi, right? All the Mumbai teams used to play in Baliwadi in those days. Everybody in Indian football who's followed football from those days knows what the ghost of Baliwadi is. The ghost of Baliwadi is, as soon as you're 1-0 up, you start falling down, time waste, and kill the clock, kill the momentum of the game. And then he gets into fights with opposition coaches because of that, and then gets to the referee. And it's you look at his coaching style, right? You're watching the current World Cup. You don't see many coaches at the high level like running up and down, calling every play-by-play. You'll see that at youth football. You go and watch an under-9, under-10s, you'll see coaches trying to micromanage every pass, every decision. You watch him on the sideline in the national team at the moment, like what Ashish was saying. It's comical. He's trying to tell every player what to do because there's no plan before. Like what you said about Stephen Constant is true. You could see with Stephen's team, there's a clear idea what to do when we have the ball. It's very simple, 4-4-2, get the wingers outside cross, etc. Hey, it worked, right? We did score a lot more goals from open play under Stephen than we did probably even under successive coaches after that. There was a lot of set play goals after that, but open play goals, JJ and Sunil, it worked. In terms of when we didn't have the ball, there were clear lines. You see your two banks of four, and then you'd see your forwards defending. They were very organized and tough to break down as an India team. Now, look, as Ashley said, when Khalid came in, if you want results, which is when he was signed, there was still a chance to qualify and you wanted results. That football you can kind of excuse because, hey, you get a win against Bangladesh, you get a win against Hong Kong, we'll take it. Ugly win still is 3 points, right, to get to the next round. But then now when qualifying is not possible, you got to build for the future. And they're talking about the next cycle. You have a Unity Cup where the substitution limit was much bigger than a normal match. And to not use it and not use it properly is inexcusable. In the past, when you get foreign coaches, whether it's Manolo, whether it's Steamat, Igor, and others, they blame like, oh, they don't watch Indian football, they don't know enough, they don't know this player, they don't know that player. Here's a guy who's been around for 15 years in the top level of Indian football, barring a few seasons when he was out in Nepal or here or there, right? But the selection is very, very much like if he was a club coach, he will go and pick his players. Everyone used to joke, as soon as he becomes national team coach, all right, Albino Gones is going to come in the team, as is possibly Ashutosh and, Jayesh Rane, etc.
Still playing.
Yeah, because
if Ashutosh was still playing, he would have come in.
Yeah, and there's a certain style. And then the first game, you see Mohammad Awais in the national team, and you're like, come on, seriously, this is not international level players, right?
So let me ask you this. So we get the kind of conclusion to this, and I'll let you conclude.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, I want to be direct forward onto this. A lot of times when I have tried to, talk about the thing that, I'm not enjoying the football, ye hai, wo hai, Khalid Jamil should not be the national team because this, that. A lot of people comment that he's been so successful. And even Shabbir Ali, I think the clip didn't get viral, so I'll not mention the platform name also. So he was one of those person who came out after Ashley Westwood's comment, and then came out and said Ashley Westwood just want to come into the media, that. Khalid is a very successful coach. He was very successful at Aizawl, very successful at Jamshedpur. So I want to ask you, do you think Khalid was a successful coach at club level? Think to that.
Relatively, okay. Yeah, he's won an I-League. So yes, he's got a title to his credit.
Yeah.
But prior to that, all he had ever done was avoid relegation with Mumbai. Every year, Mumbai was in relegation trouble, right? And never even in a cup competition, no IFA Shield, Durand Cup, Federation Cup success, right? With Jamshedpur, did he ever top the league? No. Did he do that with Northeast? No, right? The problem with the ISL is you finish top 4, or it became to the point where you finish top 6, you get into the playoffs. So you're judging coaches by saying, oh, well, you got in the playoffs. Well, 4 out of 8 teams or 4 out of 10 teams is not that impressive, right? In terms of pure coaching. And to go back to both what Ashley said and what Shabira said, right? What Ashley said is 100% right in terms of, is he a progressive coach? No. Does he know about modern football and modern tech ways of coaching? No. Right, and it's obvious in what we've seen, and they're still asking players to fall
Then
down.
what are these licenses for? Matlab, he's a pro license coach, so what's the value of that?
Look, people have driver's license in India. Doesn't mean that like everyone's out there is a good driver, right? So it's a license. It doesn't mean you get a license. That's just a piece of paper, right?
Not everybody can drive a Ferrari, right?
Yeah, I got a pro license. There were people on my pro license course who possibly shouldn't have passed their B license, right? Judging by their sessions, right? So don't go by a piece of paper that somebody is. Yeah. That paper doesn't make you.
Yeah, so I'll come to Ashish bhai. Even
I'll just finish the thing about
sure.
Shabir, right? I don't know if you've met Shabir Ali recently, right? Legend of his day back in the day, but there are reasons we have retirement ages in every profession. There are people who are well past their sell-by date, right? I've seen him at an event about 3 or 4 years ago. He needed help walking to the place, and not really very articulate in the way he can speak or even have a discussion in a panel. So for such people to be on the panel picking who the coach is, of course he's going to come out and make statement against Ashley because he has to defend. He's one of the people who was responsible for hiring Khalid. It was on a coaches group, he made this comment. And I replied saying, of course he has to justify it, right?
Yeah.
So when you make a bad decision, you have to then try and justify that bad decision. And then to try and malign Ashley's name. Okay, look, Ashley wanted the India job. There's no secret. I think he admitted that in that podcast.
Yeah.
And there is bad blood between them over the years. So big deal. He's made a comment about it. Now, that's just normal everywhere in football, right? Now, can Shabir Ali justify the way the team is playing? Can he justify the selection? Can he justify what the future is? And these are people who are on our national committee picking the coaches. Is there a reason why we're playing this football? Is this the future of Indian football? Right? Recently, they all made some document that they came out, right, about how we're going to play. So that's the problem. The problem is these are the people we've entrusted with the future. So it's doomed because of that.
Ashish bhai, coming on to that, and उसमें मैं थोड़ा ऐड करना चाहूँगा. जैसे he talked about the interviews and all जो हुआ था नहीं हुआ था, we are not aware of it since you have all the insider information, तो उसमें हमें context मिलेगा. But when Khalid Jamil का जब appointment भी हुआ था, the press release that came out, उसमें कोई ऐसा significantly mentioned नहीं था कि this is why Khalid Jamil has been was listed amongst the top 3 coaches, 4 coaches जो कि shortlist हुए थे और उनमें से इनको hire किया गया. But what was mentioned that this following coach, that following coach, this following committee member, all of them suggested that we should trust an Indian coach to go forward, and that's why they came with Khalid Jamil. And one of the coaches who was in that committee was Bimal Ghosh, जो कि Khalid Jamil के former coach हैं. तो selection कैसे हुई और उस time पे did you trust him as the coach to go forward? What was your initial thought when he was selected?
See, 2 things. Let's talk about selection first. When was the last time AIFF followed a foolproof concept or a process to appoint a coach in Indian football? Guess the year. I give you options. 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's nearly 7 years ago. That is 2019 when we appointed Steamatch. That was a time when AIFF followed any kind of a process. Okay. In that process also, when Steamatch was appointed, there was Albert Roca was running for the job, and he also kind of directly mentioned that I was not given fair time, I was not given the similar platform but Steamatch was given. ठीक है, that was back in 2019. उसके बाद से आप सिर्फ हेड कोच की बात करें, नेशनल टीम की बात करते हैं, यूथ लेवल तो coach Pred will tell you how the coaches are appointed. Well, that's irrelevant यहाँ पे, senior coach की बात करते हैं. Steamatch was there till he took India to the Asia Cup. We played the draw against Qatar. Then came the process to renegotiate the Steamatch contract. उसमें भी आपको सारा चीज पता है कि कैसे उसमें प्रोसेस उसमें भी फॉलो नहीं हुआ, चाहे आप यू हेयर अदर साइड यू और अनदर साइड, दोनों साइड में गलतियां थी, प्रोसेस उसमें भी फॉलो नहीं है जो प्रोसेस एक फेडरेशन के अंदर होना चाहिए इन द टी मैच कॉन्ट्रैक्ट रिन्यूअल ऑल्सो। ठीक है, टी मैच का फिर टाइम आया, टी मैच गया, उसके बाद आपने अपॉइंट किया मनोलो मार्कस। क्या आपको लगता है मनोलो मार्कस उस टाइम पे बेस्ट पॉसिबल कोच थे इस जॉब के लिए? नहीं थे, बट पॉइंट है कि डिसीजन ऑलरेडी ले लिया गया है, एंड दैट्स व्हाई आई माइट नॉट ब्लेम जो टेक्निकल कमिटी में लोग बैठे हैं, बिकॉज दे आर रबर स्टैम्प। उनको बताया जाता है कि अब हमें ऐसा कोच चाहिए जो आईएसएल और इंडियन फुटबॉल, मतलब प्रेस को क्या बताना है या मीडिया को क्या बताना है कि हमें ऐसा कोच चाहिए जो आईएसएल और इंडियन फुटबॉल टीम दोनों कर सकता है, एंड ऑफ कोर्स एआईएफएफ के पैसे भी बच जाएंगे, मनोलो मार्कस विल डू अ डुअल रोल, सो लेट्स गो टुवर्ड्स कि मनोलो इंडियन प्लेयर्स को जानता है, मनोलो ने हैदराबाद में एक किया, मनोलो ने गोवा में एक किया, तो सारा पीआर बनाया जाता है, सोशल मीडिया पे माहौल बनाया जाता है, आप देखोगे। उसके बाद फिर आए मनोलो मार्कस, ठीक है, एंड मैं फिर बोलूंगा मनोलो मार्कस इज अ ग्रेट कोच, बट वहां पे डू प्रोसेस फॉलो नहीं हुआ था, बिकॉज एआईएफएफ की कोचिंग रिक्वायरमेंट में जब कोचेस की जॉब आती है, पहला एक मेजर क्राइटेरिया होता है कि इंटरनेशनल जॉब एक्सपीरियंस, मेजर टूर्नामेंट में करना चाहिए आपको, एशिया कप, यूरोज या वर्ल्ड कप कभी का मेजर क्राइटेरिया है। वो क्राइटेरिया तो मनोलो मार्कस ने फॉलो नहीं किया, और जिन कोचेस ने अप्लाई किया था उनके नाम मैं जानता हूं, बहुत सारे आप लोग जानते हैं, नाम भी बाहर आए थे, उनका वो क्राइटेरिया फुलफिल था, फिर मनोलो मार्कस को जॉब मिल गई। ठीक है, देन मनोलो मार्कस का एक्सपेरिमेंट नहीं चला, ऑफ कोर्स उनके ऊपर थोपा जा रहा था, इस प्लेयर को सिलेक्ट करो, उस प्लेयर को सिलेक्ट करो, तो मनोलो मार्कस ने भैया आके रिजाइन कर दिया। उसके बाद क्या माहौल आया आप देखो कि सोशल मीडिया पे और मीडिया में क्या माहौल बनाया गया। अब टाइम हैज कम फॉर द इंडियन कोच, हम इतने टाइम से फॉरेनर्स कोच को जॉब दे रहे हैं, अब हम इंडियन कोच को जॉब देंगे, मतलब आप समझिए मजाक बना रखा है नेशनल टीम जॉब का, म्यूजिकल चेयर है कि अभी ये नहीं चला अब ये कर लो, एंड यू आर स्टिल एट दैट टाइम इनटू, मतलब यू कैन स्टिल क्वालिफाई फॉर द एशिया कप, उस एशिया कप की जिसके बिडिंग, जिसके लिए हम बिड कर रहे थे, जिसकी बिड इस एआईएफएफ की करंट कमिटी ने विड्रॉ कर दी, और हम दो बैक टू बैक एशिया कप खेल चुके हैं 2019-2023 with 24 team in Asia. That should be a minimum requirement for our senior team to play the Asia Cup. अगर आप टॉप 24 एशिया में नहीं हो तो आप फिर बंद कर दो सारी फेडरेशन, मैं तो बोल रहा हूँ अगर सिचुएशन है। फिर माहौल बनाया गया कि अब इंडियन कोच की बारी है जी, तो इंडियन कोच की बारी है, तो इंडियन कोच में ऑप्शन कौन है आपके पास, कितने इंडियन कोचेस एक्टिव कोचिंग कर रहे हैं इस टाइम पे? तो समहाउ खालिद जमील का सीवी आपको बड़ा ही दिखेगा ना, बिकॉज जो आप उनको अगर वो जो उन कोचेस से कंपेयर कर रहे हो जो बंगाल में बैठे हैं, जॉब ही नहीं कर रहे, दे यूज्ड टू बी अ बिगर नेम इन आई लीग डेज प्रीवियसली, पर अभी करंट इंडियन कोचेस कौन है जिनका सीवी जो रेगुलर कोचिंग कर रहे हैं, उसमें खालिद जमील का ही नाम बड़ा दिखेगा, तो देन ऑटोमेटिकली खालिद जमील बिकेम अ फर्स्ट चॉइस। बट आप अगेन उसमें क्राइटेरिया देखो, इंटरनेशनल एक्सपीरियंस खालिद जमील का जीरो है। आप एक जॉब
इंटरनेशनल था, सब कुछ प्री प्लान था,
ऑफ कोर्स ये ऊपर से आता है, किसको अपॉइंट करना है,
रेगुलेशंस फॉलो नहीं होता है,
चाहे कोई भी कोच देख लो आप, वुमेन्स टीम के कोचेस अपॉइंट हुए हैं, यूथ टीम के कोचेस अपॉइंट हुए हैं, तो कोई प्रोसेस फॉलो नहीं होता है। ठीक है, बीच में तो आपकी वुमेन्स टीम के तो कोचेस हैं, मैं नाम नहीं लूंगा, बड़े कोच हैं, आई थिंक आई नोज हिम वेरी वेल, वो भी उनका भी लाइसेंस बड़ा है, पर उन्होंने 30,000 रुपीज की मंथ की सैलरी के लिए उन्होंने वो जॉब ली थी, तो उनको इसलिए अपॉइंट किया गया था बिकॉज 30,000 की सैलरी में काम करने को तैयार थे, और कोई और कोच तैयार नहीं था, वुमेन्स टीम के सीनियर कोच बने थे। तो ये ऐसे मतलब आप टेक्निकल कमेटी अगर आप ऑप्शन दे रहे हो, ये कि एक ऑप्शन है आपके पास संतोष कश्यप, एक ऑप्शन है खालिद जमील, ऐसे आप 2-3 ऑप्शन और दे रहे हो जिन्होंने 10 साल पहले आई लीग में कोचिंग करी थी, तो अब टेक्निकल कमेटी भी तो बोलेगी यार चलो खालिद जमील तो आईएसएल में कोच कर रहा है, एंड अब तो इसमें अब मैं बोलना नहीं चाहता कि वर्स्ट ऑप्शन में एक आपको बेस्ट ढूंढना है, तो आप देख लो कैसा कोच निकल के आया।
टेक्निकल कमेटी को डायरेक्टली ऐसे बोलना कि ये उनकी गलती है नहीं हो सकता है, सब चीज ऊपर से ऑर्डर आया टेक्निकल कमेटी को कि हमें इंडियन कोच चाहिए, सो दे सॉर्टेड इट आउट कि हमें कौन सा चाहिए, ऐसा है।
अब नहीं देखिए, मैं कहीं ना कहीं जब ये कोच अपॉइंट हुए हैं पिछले, मैं कह रहा हूँ डू प्रोसेसेस फॉलो क्यों नहीं हुए, क्योंकि वो इंटरव्यू कैसे भी जाए कोच का, कई बार होता है ना आप किसी जॉब के लिए अप्लाई कर रहे हो, 4 लोग उसके लिए रन कर रहे हैं, एक बंदे का इंटरव्यू बहुत अच्छा जाए, उस इंटरव्यू से पहले भले ही वो थर्ड चॉइस होगा, बट आफ्टर इंटरव्यू वो फर्स्ट चॉइस बन सकता है, राइट, बिकॉज बेस्ड ऑन इंटरव्यूज इज आइडियाज, अगर उसने कोई प्रेजेंटेशन बनाई हो, आप बता दीजिए खालिद जमील ने कौन सी प्रेजेंटेशन बनाई थी इंटरव्यू के लिए, और कौन सी प्रेजेंटेशन दी है उन्होंने एआईएफएफ को कि मैं नेशनल टीम के साथ क्या करूंगा, किसी भी जॉब के लिए।
इगोर ने दी थी ड्यूरिंग हिज टेन्योर, उसने उस पे बात भी किया था कि आई गेव दिस प्रेजेंटेशन, बट कोई रिस्पांस ही नहीं आया, मैंने वो प्रेसिडेंट, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, जनरल सेक्रेटरी को दी।
नहीं मैं कह रहा हूँ जब इगोर की बीच वाली प्रेजेंटेशन, जब आप जॉब के लिए अप्लाई करते हो ना, किसी भी कोच, किसी भी लेवल पे, क्लब लेवल पे भी जब जॉब के लिए अप्लाई करते हो, तो पहला काम जो अच्छा कोच होता है ना, वो एक प्रेजेंटेशन बनाता है क्लब को दिखाने के लिए, अपने जो भी उसका इंटरव्यू उसको दिखाने के लिए कि मेरे प्लान ये है, मैं ये करना चाहता हूँ, ये मुझे चाहिए होगा, दिस इज माई प्लान। ये वर्ल्ड वाइड स्टैंडर्ड है। आप AIFF को बोलिए कि खालिद जमील की प्रेजेंटेशन पब्लिक कर दीजिए कि उसके क्या प्लान थे। तो मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि ऑलरेडी कोच डिसाइड है तो आप ड्रामा मत कीजिए ना, सीधा अपॉइंट कर दीजिए। आप एप्लीकेशन निकालते हो, फिर न्यूज निकालते हो कि जावी ने अप्लाई कर दिया, उसने अप्लाई कर दिया, देन यू मेक इट हल्ला अराउंड इट, कि ओ देखो AIFF की जॉब, इंडियन फुटबॉल टीम की जॉब कितनी डिमांड में है कि वर्ल्ड क्लास कोचेस अप्लाई कर रहे हैं। बट फायदा क्या है वर्ल्ड क्लास कोचेस अप्लाई करने का? क्योंकि आपने तो पहले ही विनर सेलेक्ट कर रखा है कि विनर कौन होने वाला है। ये पिछले 2 से 3 अपॉइंटमेंट में ऑलरेडी ये था, और ये होता है। इवन वुमेन्स टीम में भी ये चीज हुई है। वहां पे भी एक कोच आया, उसने बोला अच्छा उसको CEO को पसंद आ गया, नेशनल टीम डायरेक्टर को पसंद आ गया, तो कोच या कमेटी को दे दे, इसको कोच अपॉइंट कर दो। तो कमेटी का क्या मतलब है? मैं ये कह रहा हूं ना कि आप एक फेयर मौका तो दीजिए। अगर आपने मान के चलिए एज अ फेडरेशन AIFF ने 5 शॉर्टलिस्ट करे कि 5 अच्छे कोचेस है, एंड लेट द कमेटी टेक अ फेयर डिसीजन ऑन देयर क्रेडेंशियल, देयर इनपुट जो दे रहे हैं, प्रेजेंटेशन बना रहे हैं, प्लान दे रहे हैं। एंड कोई भी कोच वर्ल्ड में, कोई भी अपॉइंटमेंट बिना प्लान के कोई इंटरव्यू होता ही नहीं है। मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, चाहे यूथ लेवल पे हो, चाहे सीनियर लेवल पे हो, क्लब लेवल पे हो।
But Ashish, the problem is, look at that committee. There is not a single person there who has ever been in a position at a club. So they've never been at an ISL or an I-League club.
Can you take the names?
Where they've had.
Can you take the names for
IM Vijayan is the chairman, legendary Indian football.
Chairman, right? You've got, I think, Amal Raj. You've got like Shabir Pasha. Who else is there? Either the gentleman we mentioned earlier from Hyderabad, Shabir Ali. Right? Have they ever sat in a club position where they've interviewed and said, "Oh, let's get interviews of head coaches," and brought 6-7 coaches? So ask people to do a presentation. They couldn't sit through a presentation. These people, who else? Climax Lawrence and others. Right? They've never sat in that
They'll get
chair
bored.
as a CEO. Yeah, exactly. A technical director to interview 6 different coaches. If you ask them now, okay, give them a job at, let's say, CEO of Club X in ISL, and say, do what a Ravi Puskur or Vinay or somebody else has to do in terms of hiring a coach. How will they even go about identifying? Probably first thing they'll phone a friend and then say, do you know any agent? Can you send me some list? The agents will send them, and then they'll say, this is the best guy. This is what he can do. This is this. And that's not the way it should be. So if you've got the wrong people in the position of hiring, you're not going to make right decisions. And
no, I'm not defending the committee. Committee is मैं बोलना नहीं चाहता, but there are people who can't speak a particular language जिससे आपको communicate करना है, right?
That's the sad part. See, the point is, like, after India loses these matches, right? So people will be hammering, oh, Rahul Beke shouldn't be in the team. He's old. Jingan should retire, or this and that. And then this. And the players get berated for they're trying to follow a coach's instruction. If they don't follow that instruction of just playing ultra defensively and play for set pieces, slow the game down, etc., negative football. If you don't follow that, you're not going to be in the next squad. So the players are protecting their.
Do you mean to say that like players like Farooq Chaudhary, players like Rahul Beke, players like Nikhil Pujari to some extent, players like Jigsan Singh, is Khalid Jamil making these players look really bad?
Do you remember that clip a year or so ago with Nikhil Pujari receiving it in the final third? He pirouetted, backheeled it into play into a teammate and got the assist and scored a goal. You look at the way, first of all, Farooq Chaudhary doesn't even play in that centre midfield position at club level. And Rahul Beke started playing way back. He used to be a right back back in like East Bengal days, and then progressed to being a good centre back. He's won the ISL as a very good, reliable centre back, good at set pieces, etc. But because of this long throw obsession, he's played in the right back position. He's not, as defenders get older, a lot of time you shift that experience and they'll play more centrally. As a centre back, and Rahul Beke, if you ask him, would prefer to play as centre back and not as right back. We have plenty of.
He don't want to play a right back. He don't want to play a right back.
So now it's either for Rahul Beke's got a simple choice: play right back and listen to what your former coach, club coach is telling you to do, or you won't be in my national team squad, which significantly drops his market value. Right? His agent will say you're a national team player, then I was automatically a 2x multiplier in the ISL or whatever, 5x multiplier. So he will do it. Now, would Rahul Beke with Jingan and Anwar, probably a really good back three? You could play them and have the protection of wing backs. And we've got plenty. You've got the likes of Mishra, you've got Valpoya, you've got plenty of players who can play in those positions, right? So you are making players, A, play out of position, B, play to a style that doesn't suit them, C, play to a way they don't usually play at club level, right? They don't just boot the ball away. Even like Gurpreet, like people are hammering Gurpreet, like, oh, look what he's doing. As soon as he's getting the ball, he's just launching it towards the Tajikistan goal. But he's probably been told that, because you don't see him doing that under Igor, because you wouldn't see him doing that too much under Manolo, because he'd be dragged from the squad. He wouldn't play again. You wouldn't see him doing it for Gerard Zaragoza at Bengaluru, right? So this is clearly instructions in to play this very, very sort of minimal risk football. But again, if you go back to it, what's the national team department committee doing? Are they saying we have a style of play? This is how we want to be seen in the future. This is the kind of players we want. Because otherwise, what's Naushad Musa producing players for, right? Is he producing a midfield when you're going to go, as Ashish said, to a 7-3-1 formation where we don't have midfield? We bypass midfield. So what's the point of him having a midfield-heavy squad when the squad is announced with the senior team and we only have 4 genuine centre midfielders? And then in that, a winger strike forward. Farouk's good out wide. He's a good 7 or 11, and he's done a good job at club level. And the kid's talented, right? But don't put him in midfield and then blame him for that goal. And they're saying like, oh, look at that missed pass over there that led to the goal against, I think it was Zimbabwe or one of the goals in the Unity Cup. But he's not used to playing in that position. So that's 100% on the coaching department. And let's know, when you get into the coaching department, that's a whole other can of worms. Yeah.
So just to add on what coach is saying, Pratt saying, see, you see the team selection, the Khalid. He had it's not to blame Mohan Bagan, current selection. I'm saying go previous selections. He names just between 3 to 5 midfielders, 3 to 5, including a number 10 if Sahel, Brendan are there, 3 to 5 center midfielders, total midfielder, and sometimes they count Changte as a midfielder also, because AIFF team sheets, if you see, they were listing Farooq Chaudhary as a defender, by the way. And वो दोनों मैच में वो defender ही list रहा, Farooq Chaudhary. And one of the players, he was listed as Farooq Chaudhary was listed as a defender. You can see what kind of national team department, as Prad is saying, आप एक मैच में गलती कर सकते हो, अगले मैच को ठीक कर दोगे, ठीक है? So just coming on selection, he select only 3 to 5 midfielders in a squad of 23, 24, whereas worldwide now coaches are going 7 to 8 midfielders. And उस 3 to 5 में भी 2 ही बंदे 6 और 8 खेल सकते हैं. जब फारूक को मिडफील्ड में खिलाओगे तो फारूक आपको आउट ऑफ प्ले हमेशा दिखेगा ही दिखेगा, राइट? एंड आई स्टिल डोंट गेट इट. इंडिया जो हमारी करंट क्रॉप आ रही है टैलेंट की, आई थिंक द बेस्ट टैलेंट इज कमिंग इन मिडफील्ड, बाय द वे, व्हिच कोच Pred will have enough data to support it, what I'm trying to say. आप क्योंकि हर एक क्लब में 6 और 8 इंडियन खेल रहा है, एंड वो 6 और 8 अभी जो ये टीम सेलेक्ट हुई थी, वो सारे के सारे इन 6 और 8 से बेटर हैं जो अभी खेल रहे थे. चाहे वो आप जिक्सन की बात करो, चाहे रिकी की बात करो, चाहे फारूक की बात करो, जो आप चाहे आप कंपेयर करो नामते से चेन्नई में, आपने 23 टीम में देखा, कंपेयर करो फनाई से, कंपेयर करो आप तोम्बा से जो इंटरकाशी के लिए खेल रहे थे, वो उनका सीजन, उनकी डायनेमिक जो बॉक्स टू बॉक्स भागने का तरीका है. आप जिक्सन को देखो, सी नथिंग, नो प्रॉब्लम अगेंस्ट जिक्सन एज अ इंडिविजुअल, मतलब पर्सनल को प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बट ये स्लो, एंड दैट्स द रीजन ईस्ट बंगाल ऑस्कर वाज प्लेइंग विद अ सेंटर बैक. एक मैं बड़ा एग्जांपल देता हूं, द मैच व्हिच डिसाइडेड द टाइटल, राइट? आपने देखा होगा सेकंड हाफ में ईस्ट बंगाल में जिक्सन को सेंटर बैक बना दिया, अनवर अली को ऑन द बॉल मिडफील्ड में डाल दिया था ऑस्कर ने, बिकॉज ऑस्कर कैन सी जिक्सन टेक लॉट्स ऑफ टाइम टू पास द बॉल फॉरवर्ड, which Anwar doesn't. तो ये चीजें कोचेस देखते हैं. हमारा मेन नंबर 6 यूनिटी कप में और इस 2 गेम में कौन है? जिक्सन सिंह. तो उसके लिए मैं अब कैसे किसी और को ब्लेम करूं? क्या और मिडफील्डर्स नहीं है? नामते चेन्नई में था, फनई बेंगलुरु में था, टॉम्बा आपके इंटरकाशी में था. ये सारे के सारे प्लेयर, इनका 6 से एज अ पोजीशन 6 में बेटर परफॉर्मेंस रही है. नाउ गोइंग बैक टू द पॉइंट ऑन अ टेक्निकल कमिटी, सो लेट यू आस्क मी द नेम, आई विल गिव यू द नेम. आई एम विजयन, लेजेंड एज अ प्लेयर, बट पोस्ट प्लेयर उनका करियर आप देखिए, उन्होंने कौन सी टेक्निकल जॉब की. ही इज अ चेयरपर्सन, ठीक है. शबीर अली अगेन लेजेंड एज अ प्लेयर, पोस्ट रिटायरमेंट और लास्ट 10 to 15 इयर्स में व्हाट काइंड ऑफ अ टेक्निकल जॉब्स ही हैज, वो आप चेक कीजिए. ही इज अ डिप्टी चेयरपर्सन, ठीक है. हरजिंदर सिंह, आप लास्ट 10 इयर्स में इनका टेक्निकल काम चेक कीजिए. ही इज द वन ऑफ द मेंबर. क्लाइमैक्स लॉरेंस, वन ऑफ यूज्ड टू बी अ ग्रेट मिडफील्डर फॉर इंडिया, जब 2011 एशिया कप में जाने में मेजर हैंड था. उनका आप टेक्निकल जॉब ढूंढिए कि लास्ट 10-15 साल में उन्होंने कितनी टेक्निकल जॉब्स करी हैं. एंड आई थिंक ही इज द मोस्ट टेक्निकल पर्सन, मतलब इन टर्म्स ऑफ करंट टेक्निकल काम कौन कर रहा है पूरी कमिटी में. देन देयर इज अ मिस पिंकी मगार, सेम उनका चेक कीजिए आप. संतोष कुमार सिंह, उनका भी चेक कीजिए. एंड देयर इज विक्टर अमलराज। तो ये AIFF की वेबसाइट के अकॉर्डिंग ये इनकी कमिटी है, आई एम श्योर उसमें एक बंदा ऐड हुआ है या सब्ट्रैक्ट हुआ है, वो चीज है। तो आप इस कमिटी में देखिए और डिसाइड कीजिए कि इसमें से टेक्निकल बंदा कौन सा है जो टेक्निकल डिसीजन ले सके कि इंडिया को 4-4-2 खेल रहा है या 4-3-3 खेल रहा है, किस तरह के कोच को हमें हायर करना है, किस तरह आपका टैलेंट पूल क्या है, उस तरीके का कोच चाहिए आपको किस तरह के अपोनेंट खेलना है, वो किस तरह की फुटबॉल खेलते हैं, तो उसका आपको काउंटर करने के लिए कोच चाहिए। इनमें कोई भी बंदा नहीं है, एंड दैट्स द रीजन कोच का थप्पा ऊपर से आता है और ये सिर्फ स्टैंप लगाते हैं।
इन ये कमेटी की अपॉइंटमेंट किसके अंडर हुई थी? खालिद जमील के, ये सॉरी, कल्याण चौबे के अंदर हुई थी?
कल्याण चौबे के अंडर। when elections happen then you appoint all the committees and in general आप 4 साल तक उस कमेटी को ज्यादा चेंजेस नहीं कर सकते। तो आपने अगर इनिशियली गलत कर दी,
इस कमेटी के अपॉइंटमेंट में सबसे बड़ा जो से होता है वो प्रेसिडेंट का होता है, सेक्रेटरी का होता है, किसका होता है?
ऑफ कोर्स आप जो लीडरशिप आई थी उस टाइम पे, चाहे आप कल्याण चौबे की बात करो एंड साजी प्रभाकरन, 2 लीडरशिप आई थी, राइट? एक प्रेसिडेंट आता है, जनरल सेक्रेटरी आता है, एंड देन आपकी जो एग्जीक्यूटिव कमेटी चुनी जाती है, देन दे डिसाइड कि कौन सी कमेटी में कौन सा बंदा होगा, किस दोस्त यार को कौन सी कमेटी देनी है, कहां चाय बिस्कुट बटेगा, किसके पास कहां बटे, ये सारी चीजें डिसाइड होती हैं। एंड आपको एक और चीज बताऊं, क्योंकि देखिए अगर इस कमेटी में आप खुददार आदमी डाल दो ना, कोई बोलो कि जिसका सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट हो, वो कैसे बोल देगा कि कल्याण चौबे ने उसको बोला है या किसी ने बोला ऊपर से इस कोच को अपॉइंट कर दो? वो साइन करेगा ही नहीं कि मैं एग्री नहीं करता उससे, मेरा नाम खराब हो रहा है। इनमें से जो मैंने लिस्ट आपको बताई, किसी भी बंदे को आपने देखा कि कोई उसको इफेक्ट पड़ रहा है उसकी लाइफ पे? उसको तो कोई जॉब है नहीं। अगर ऐसा होता ना कोई टेक्निकल बंदा है,
all of these are our former players जो इन्होंने इंडिया के लिए कुछ to extent अच्छा किया है, and these are the same players.
they are legends.
I know what
Pradhyum is coming to.
I know what Pradhyum is coming to. So, but just to conclude, these are the players who have played for us in the past and now dragging us down the rankings and the ladder.
See, there's a clause or something, right? The last time with the appointments where there had to be eminent players, right? So what is an eminent player in India? There is like, if we're talking about genuinely eminent players, right? None of these players have played abroad and achieved anything great that the whole of India should be listening to their gyan, right? So how they're eminent on the basis of they've played a lot of games for India, right? So like in a few years time, the players who now the fans are criticizing would have 50 caps under their belt, right? And like I think Rahul's got 50 now. A couple of players are close to 100. So just because you have 100 caps, 50 caps doesn't make you the right man for the job to hire it. And look, for me, it's always a simple way. The market doesn't lie, right? An ISL owner of a club who's spending crores and crores of rupees, they're spending 30 to 50 crores a year over the last 10 years, these clubs, right? None of them have gone out and hired these people because, oh, wow, they know a lot about Indian football. They've like eminent players. Why are none of the 14 ISL clubs or I-League clubs hired any of these people for advice in the last 10, 15 years, right? Because no one values their opinion. So if no one in the real market values their opinion, and I can go down the level, I can go down to division, like the only one actively there is Climax. Climax is coaching as a coach at Sporting Club de Goa, which is in the 3rd division of Indian football, right?
Most technical person on that committee.
So the rest are not even anywhere involved at any level. I mean, 2 of them are, I think, based out of Hyderabad. Hyderabad doesn't even have a functioning state league or any kind of football in that league. So we're going to listen to people who are fix your own backyard before you're trying to ruin the rest of the country, right? So on what basis should we be listening to these people to appoint the national team coach? And because they're on this coaches group and you listen to some of the rubbish that they're basically like, all of us are on some WhatsApp group or the other where there's an old uncle who'll send forwards and send some silly comments every now and then. And it's like that. There's a coaches WhatsApp group where you'll get these guys like occasionally sending something about this World Cup and that World Cup. I'm like, no.
You're in that group?
I'm sadly, yes, in that group.
Now you might be kicked out.
No. Every day I think, no, I won't get kicked out because there are a lot of sensible coaches on that group. But as in a lot of the case, most of the time, the loudest voices are the empty vessels, right? And the others just bear it. In India, everyone's bears silence. They're scared to say anything because, look, some of these guys are on the technical committee. So no one's going to criticize Shabir Ali when he puts that comment on it, right? Everyone will be like, yes, sir, you're correct, sir.
Yeah, I want to like kind of hear from both of you क्योंकि ऐसा होता है कि जब कोई former player जिनके बारे में जिनको तो पहली बार हमने खेलते हुए देखा नहीं, We have read it somewhere, maybe in Sandeep's book, maybe in Barefoot to Boots, Novi Kapadia's book. All of these books we have read. And अब जब उनके ऐसे comments सुनते हैं तो we listen to it from a perspective that we have to pay respect to whatever he's saying as a coach, as an individual. But is that one of the reasons why we as fans are not thinking critical to question the ecosystem and just agree upon whatever they're saying just because we look at their status and see, oh, ये तो काफी अच्छे player थे, coach थे, so he might make sense, he must be making sense.
Sadly, I think in the country we don't have open debate about it, right? You'll like, we've got a different opinion to them, and nobody's willing to come and debate. Like, it's not like saying what we're saying is always right, but come and back up what you're saying. But it's like you have people who refuse to come and give interviews, right? They don't come out in the press and back themselves with what they're doing. If coaches come out there and say, I'm not picking so-and-so players for the national team because this is the way I want to play and this is what I want to do, fair enough, that's the thing. Then you judge them by their results. But there's no logic. It's just hiding behind excuses. And when they do come out, it's spin doctored by the media, the press releases. The way the press releases come out, it's not an open conversation. It's just spin doctored. And then when it does come out openly, you can hear the rubbish, like, we're preparing for the SAF Cup. I mean, it was refreshing to hear the women's coach at least saying the SAF Cup is not that important. We should be looking beyond that. So, respect to Crispin for saying that, and then going on and winning it as well. And that should have been what the men's team is saying, that the SAF Cup is not important. We should play that with our under 23s. I mean, I think Naushad Musa should play the under 20, the SAF Cup. The senior team should be focusing on the ASEAN tournament. And this is, again, we don't have that foresight. That the national team committee shouldn't be worried about, SAF's happening at the same time as ASEAN, what's going to happen to SAF? Play the SAF with the under 23s, right? Let's see how good our under 23s are. Because you look at the other ASEAN countries now, they've got the ASEAN Hyundai tournament. Most of them are going to play with their under 23s. And then there's the Asian games where a lot of under 23s will be playing because the seniors will be preparing for the ASEAN Cup. So you look at countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, how many games those guys are playing between their under 23s and their seniors over the next 6 months. We're nowhere near that. And we're missing golden opportunity now with to develop the next batch. And if we don't do that, it's going to be the same old. And then sadly, when in the media, it's always the players who end up getting the blame. And it's the people behind the players who are making the decisions that actually make them look bad. Because September onwards, fans will be cheering Rahul Beke for scoring a winner off a set piece for Bengaluru or whoever he's playing for next season. They'll be cheering Sandesh Jhingan for being the rock at the back of the defense. He was arguably the best Indian player for Goa this year. It was impressive even in some of the AFC matches. And you can go through the list. Chakde will do well for Mumbai and others. But when it comes to the national team, why? And there's a cancer in the system and you have to eradicate that.
Yeah. So before I move on to the next question, Ashish bhai, आप कुछ add करना चाहोगे?
Yeah, just to add, because we talked about a technical committee, let's talk about one more technical position held by a gentleman called Mr. Pasha, Syed Sabir Pasha, right? He's a technical director, right? Technical director of in AIFF, Indian football in general. Last time we used to have a good, decent technical director. I will go Rauban time, back in 2012. At least you could see what his ideas was and what he wanted to do on a grassroots and the football structure of the national team. What is Syed Sabir Pasha's career? Agar aap dekho, as a, he played for India, and I'm not sure, he's still employed with the Indian Bank, but he used to be working with the Indian Bank, playing for them, and then later on also managing them. Then he managed, Tamil Nadu back in 2012. Then he was a head coach of AIFF Elite Academy. Okay, and then what happened? Elite Academy chhod ke he went to AIFF Elite Academy used to be in Goa. This is back when we have 5 FIFA academies in India. Coach Pride will remember. Fail another, which old wine we are bringing back in a new bottle with the Odisha and Hyderabad Academy, where different level of fraud is going. Different topic for different day. And then he left AIFF Technical Academy, and guess what? He joined Chennai FC as an assistant coach. And guess what? With whom 5 or 6 elite talent from that elite academy joined Chennai FC, and he was assistant coach there for for nearly 4-5 years. Because there was a rule in ISL that time that you need to have an Indian assistant coach, and then all of a sudden he became an AIFF technical director in 2023. That's the most important position टेक्निकल पोजीशन इन अ एक कंट्री के फुटबॉल में होती है, दैट्स द पोजीशन.
And these guys have never come out to the media to speak and क्या कर रहे हैं ये behind the scenes, क्या करना चाह रहे हैं इंडियन फुटबॉल
एक बार किसी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में लेके आए थे मिस्टर चौबे, आई थिंक एक बार किसी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस लेके आए थे, पर उन्होंने कुछ बोला नहीं. ठीक है, और दाएं बाएं अगेन जो फैब्रिकेटेड प्रेस रिलीजेस कोट्स आते हैं वो आती रहती है. बट आई एम जस्ट सेइंग, राइट, ही इज द वन who is in charge of making sure the next batch of coaches get ready, and we know that what kind of scam is going in the coaching license in India. He is the one who should be held accountable for the continuity in the youth teams. You know, the players should gather from one team to another and then another, and they should all play similar kind of playing style. I don't know that does he has own playing style, वो मुझे नहीं पता, अलग बात है, because he's never coached full time. You know, आप देखो तो तमिलनाडु का फुल टाइम कोच किया और इंडियन बैंक को फुल टाइम कोच किया. That's a full time coaching experience, you know, and उसके बाद academy level पे वो कोच रहे हैं. Then he is the one who is responsible for, you know, making sure who should be the coaches for the, you know, youth teams, and who should be again coach of the senior team. He sits in the technical committee because वो technical committee में नहीं है, but he holds the technical position. तो आप most important criteria जो technical AIFF के अंदर है, उनके इनके decision है वो मिस्टर पासा के, right? अब उनका आप CV देखिए. मैंने एक बीच में एक वीडियो किया था ऑन अ सीवी थिंग इन एआईएफएफ. एक जॉब हायरिंग हुई थी. आई डोंट वांट टू पुट इट बिकॉज़ उसमें लीगल मैटर चल रहे हैं, बट उसमें फॉर एग्जांपल एक यू नो पर्सन विद अ फैशन बैकग्राउंड वाज हायर्ड इन द नेशनल टीम डिपार्टमेंट एंड लॉजिस्टिक डिपार्टमेंट, लेटर वाज मेड एचआर. शी नेवर स्टडीड एचआर, शी वाज हैंडलिंग एचआर एट एआईएफएफ. तो सिमिलर थिंग व्हाट सैयद पासा हैज डन टू बी टेक्निकल डायरेक्टर ऑफ इंडिया. टेल मी दिस. Then you go that Khalid Jamil is a right appointment or not, you know, that XYZ is a right appointment or not. You just see your technical committee, and technical committee kind of a, you know, next to technical director. उसमें आप देखो उन्होंने क्या करा है to be there at that position. What is the qualification? You will get your answer why have India have struggled in last 4-5 years. That's as simple as possible to, you know, जब तक ये वो root cause नहीं fix करोगे, आप ऊपर से coaches बदलते जाओ, कुछ नहीं होने वाला. आप ओसीआई पीआईओस भी ले आओ तब भी कुछ नहीं होने वाला, क्योंकि रूट कॉज आप नहीं फिक्स करते.
यप, सो थोड़ा मतलब फ्यूचर पे ही बात करते हैं, सिंस यू विल बी हैविंग फ्रेश इलेक्शंस ऑफ द इन द एआईएफएफ. नवंबर में होगा फ्रेश इलेक्शंस. तो टू सम एक्सटेंट डू यू गाइज फील दैट इंडियन फुटबॉल माइट गेट अ गुड लीडरशिप to run? And a good leadership, what does it mean? Someone who is politically strong, someone who is very strong with football understanding, development understanding. What kind of leadership should AIFF get in November?
See, nobody can predict this. This is like a political elections, right? We know that how political elections get managed in India. You know, nobody can predict who will come and who will not come. There are people, of course, who are interested. There are people who are trying to create alliance right now. But वो भी इसी सिस्टम के पार्ट है. You know, अगर वही नाम घूम फिर के दोबारा वापस आ जाएंगे जो पहले थे, you know, जिन्होंने ये प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करने में करी है और जो अभी भी हैं, तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि मेरा सिंपल मानना है, द प्रेसिडेंट शुड बी हु हैज अ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्सपीरियंस, चाहे वो पॉलिटिकली हो चाहे कहीं हो, राइट? ही शुड नॉट बी योर एक्स प्लेयर, राइट? कि जस्ट बिकॉज एक्स प्लेयर उसको आप प्रेसिडेंट बना दो, क्योंकि प्रेसिडेंट का काम नहीं है टेक्निकल डिसीजन लेना. टू बी ऑनेस्ट, आप देखो जहां जहां आपके टेक्निकल इंडिया में, लीव असाइड एआईएफएफ, जो भी नेशनल फेडरेशंस हैं जहां पर टेक्निकल बंदा प्रेसिडेंट बना है या एक्स प्लेयर या कोच प्रेसिडेंट बना है, वहां पे उस फेडरेशन के बुरे हाल है. ठीक है, तो आपको, क्योंकि उनको एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है, उन्होंने आज तक 2 लोगों को तो मैनेज किया नहीं है. आप कह रहे हो 60 एम्प्लॉइज प्लस कंसल्टेंट प्लस ये कमिटी मेंबर, अराउंड 150 पीपल को उनको एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव करना है. उनका जीरो एक्सपीरियंस है उस चीज का. व्हाट आई बिलीव दैट यू नीड अ राइट,
please, you just finish that.
What I believe that you need a right person with an administrative experience. And then second, my personal belief is that ये जो आपकी जनरल सेक्रेटरी की पोजीशन है ना, उसको भी ऑनरी कर देनी चाहिए. वो सैलरी नहीं होनी चाहिए, वो ऑनरी होनी चाहिए. And then you hired a CEO.
What does that mean?
Like Hockey India did.
नहीं, what does that mean?
Right now जनरल सेक्रेटरी के लिए कौन सी जॉब पोस्ट निकाली गई है एफएफ में, राइट? लास्ट जनरल सेक्रेटरी 2010 में कुशाल दास आए थे. कुशाल दास जब जनरल सेक्रेटरी आए थे, he is not there, rest in peace, but at that time he came in because he brought that IMG Reliance deal in. That's why he became a general secretary, right? उसके बाद 2020 जब कुशाल दास गए, 2022 में इलेक्शंस हुए, साजी प्रभाकरन तो फाइट कर रहे थे टू बी प्रेसिडेंट. फिर अलायंस बना, राइट, कल्याण चौबे प्रेसिडेंट बने तो साजिद पराक्रम जनरल सेक्रेटरी बन गए. अगेन आपने कोई पोस्ट तो निकाली नहीं, आप एम्प्लॉय हायर कर रहे हो ना, आप एक ऑनरी पोजीशन तो हायर नहीं कर रहे हो. देन उनके जाने के बाद साजिद पराक्रम गए तो आपने मिस्टर सत्या जो कर्नाटक एफए में थे, वो एक्सको का पार्ट थे, उनको आपने डिप्टी जनरल सेक्रेटरी बना दिया. वो वाइल जाने से पहले ही बना दिया था टू शेयर द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. अनदर पोजीशन जो सैलरीड है, पर आपने कोई जॉब पोस्ट तो नहीं निकाली, आपने कोई इंटरव्यूज तो नहीं किए. देन जब साजी को रिप्लेस करने के लिए आए अनिल प्रभाकरण फ्रॉम केरला फुटबॉल एसोसिएशन, अनदर पोजीशन जो आपके इन्हीं फेडरेशन के ही स्टेट एफए के बंदे हैं. ही इज नॉट, दे आर नॉट क्वालिफाइड व्हाट दे हैव डन टू बी देयर. तो मैं कह रहा हूं अगर आप ऐसे,
बट दे हैव वोटेड फॉर कल्याण चौबे टू बी देयर.
नो, बट द जनरल सेक्रेटरी वाज नॉट सपोज्ड टू बी लाइक दिस. That person need to be hired from the market. If Anil Pravakaran, if Satya Narayan, if Saji Pravakaran have an interest to be on those positions, they need to apply for the job, give interviews like other people. I should be able to apply for it. Pratt should be able to apply for it. Just because we have not taken part in your political rumble show doesn't mean that we cannot apply for it. It should be open process, right?
Yeah, maybe Kalyan Chaube reached out to them because those guys have voted for Kalyan Chaube to be the president.
But that's again illegal. There's a case going on this, by the way. I think Andhra Football Association have also put some legal case on this. Ki you can't hire a general secretary like this. This is a state for all the federations in India. It's a salaried job. It's not like an honorary job. कि आप उनको elect कर लो. It has to be hired because salary दे रहे हो. Government का पैसा जा रहा है. Right, so what I'm saying, make this general secretary position honorary position, you know, जो आपको जिसको बनाना बनाओ, but hire a proper CEO to run this federation. There are people in federation जिनको 15 साल हो चुके हैं फेडरेशन के अंदर, जो 15 साल पहले भी कुछ नहीं कर रहे थे और आज भी कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं. But they will there because they hold some strings. कुछ blackmail करने के लिए चीजें.
Yeah, but they are on a very good paycheck.
Yeah.
Paycheck की तो बात छोड़े, उनको निकालने की हिम्मत भी होनी चाहिए ना. एक एम्प्लॉय को निकालने के लिए प्रेसिडेंट 3 साल के बाद हिम्मत आती है मैं उसको निकाल सकता हूं, इवन वो गलत कर रहा हो तो आप समझिए अगर एक बंदा जो गलत कर रहा है, अंडर परफॉर्म कर रहा हो, 3 साल तक फेडरेशन में रह गया जस्ट बिकॉज किसी लीडरशिप में ये नहीं है कि इसको निकाल देंगे, हमारा बुरा कर रहा है, उनको डर रहता है बाहर जाके मैं एक्सपोज कर देगा. तो हाउ थिंग्स विल वर्क, राइट? तो इसलिए मेरा सिंपल है कि आप नेशनल टीम हम कितना भी कह लें कि इसको बदलो, टेक्निकल प्लेयर ले आओ, टेक्निकल कोच ले आओ, जब तक आप जड़ से प्रॉब्लम ठीक नहीं करोगे, विच स्टार्ट फ्रॉम योर बेसिक फेडरेशन में बेसिक लेवल से लेके आपके हेड कोच, टेक्निकल डायरेक्टर, टेक्निकल कमिटी, तब तक आप कुछ भी कर लीजिए, इट विल बी लाइक पेपर ओवर क्रैक्स, दैट्स व्हाट आई बिलीव. एंड आई थिंक coach Pred can add if you want to add something, because ये आपका technical director is not qualified, technical committee is not qualified, then you have made a national team director, ex former player again, not qualified. What he has done to be there on this job, he is a legend of Indian football, I respect for it, but उसके अलावा क्या connections उनके इंटरनेशनली इंडियन फुटबॉल टीम को हेल्प करने के लिए, वो आप देखिए. एंड कब वो हायरिंग हुई, कैसे हुई, वो देखिए. Again, I think what government need to make sure all these hiring at state any national federation should be recorded on Zoom and should be put on a public platform. If I want to put a RTI, I want to see the interview of a Khalid Jamil, that what he has given for the national team job, I should be able to watch it. AIFF comes under RTI. एंड आधे टाइम पे आईटीआई करते तो इन्फॉर्मेशन देते नहीं है बिकॉज हमारे पास नहीं है, आप यहाँ जाइए वहां जाइए. आई हैव अ पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ दिस, सो दैट्स द थिंग, राइट? बिकॉज ऑल फ्रॉम टॉप टू बॉटम यू नीड टू स्क्रैप इट एंड यू नीड टू रीबिल्ड अगेन, अगर आपको फुटबॉल में कुछ भी अगले फर्दर स्टेप लेने हैं तो.
Pradhyum, you want to add anything?
Yeah. Just say, like, if they did an RTI, you'd be shocked to find out what would happen on these interviews, because I've interviewed for some of these positions and I was shocked once. I interviewed for one of these positions and an ISL head coach, foreign ISL head coach, was on the panel interviewing for the position of national team head coach, which Subrata Paul got the job. So a guy who potentially wants that job. So an ISL coach coaching in India, one day will say, oh, I wouldn't mind being the national team head coach, right? Like how Manolo did it, or Stevens coaching the ISL, etc. So how can that person be interviewing the future candidates for the role? I mean, it's just incredible. And he was actively still coaching an ISL team at the time. What role does he have with the AIFF to be interviewing candidates? I mean, it's shocking. And that's why like RTIs would expose all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, going back to the simple thing, the way, look, FIFA is structured, countries have to vote and the guy will get in. Similarly, AIFF is states have to vote, the guy will get in. So it's very political. And so whoever comes in, fine, let it be. I mean, you can't change all these things. And the president it's almost a ceremonial position, right? It really doesn't change. Indian football is not going to change because of whether it's a Kalyan Chobe or a Praful Patel. It's what happens beneath that. And that's where, as Ashish said, get professionals in. Hire a CEO to run the federation. Then you probably need CEOs to hire, like how in the past you actually had a CEO for the I-League, right, with Sunandada. You have people, specialists running specialist departments. They've got budgets, they've got things to do, and they've got deliverables. Similarly, your national team department, everything, as long as it's accountable, right? So fine, if the rules are such that you must hire eminent players, fine, hire a couple of players, but who they're reporting to has to be somebody who has knowledge of running proper systems and structures. Then there's accountability. Like, okay, if you decided to hire Khalid Jamil, on what basis, right? Who are the other 4 that you interviewed? So at least there's someone there who's putting checks and balances in, and then that's communicated to people, because at the end of the day, it is public's money that's going in. And, there's a lot of fans who are invested in this. So people want accountability. And if you're suddenly removing a coach just before a major tournament, bringing in a foreign coach, flying her in just before the tournament, and then doing that, why? Just as long as there's an explanation and accountability. At the moment, it's very ad hoc and no one knows how it is. Like if you're a young coach in India doing your licenses, spending lakhs and lakhs of money, by the time you get to your pro, you're going to spend 12, your A license probably 70, you're probably spending upwards of 20 lakhs to get all your licenses, right? With the travel and the time and opportunity cost, etc. So if you're going to spend all that money, is there honestly a pipeline that you can see a young coach who's ambitious and does all his licenses, wants to go and tries to go work abroad, gain experience, come back to India? Is there a pathway that you can actually reach to the top? Or is it a dead end with a glass ceiling that you have to be an ex-player or friends of an ex-player to get there? And that's where I think we're all at. And that's where I think the frustration comes for all of us who followed Indian football, that it's come to the stage where now there isn't that transparency. If you're a young coach in India, it does not look good. You're like, how can I, as a young coach who's probably doing his A license now and planning on being his pro license, if he thinks, how am I ever going to get in and be a national team, youth team coach, and then work my way up? Can I prove myself and do really well with the under 23s and then maybe become a national team coach? There is no pathway. We don't see pathways for coaches. At the moment, it's ex-player, given a job, and then you keep it for the rest of, before head coaches change, but their assistant just stays. So
Okay, cut. Just let's take a minute of break if you guys want to have some water.
Sure.
Be back. Just a minute.
No problem.
Okay, so we were just talking about the administration and आशीष भाई, इफ़ यू रिमेंबर, हमने वो मिज़ोरम में वो बात की थी कि अभी वर्ल्ड कप आने वाला है, तो सारे मीडिया वाले एंड ऑल दीज प्लेटफॉर्म्स विल कम अप एंड टॉक वाई इज़ इंडिया नॉट इन द वर्ल्ड कप, 1.4 बिलियन की पॉपुलेशन है, वर्ल्ड कप में नहीं है. तो उसी पे एक अल जज़ीरा नाम से एक कतर बेस्ड कोई प्लेटफॉर्म है, मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म, तो उन्होंने भी एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री की है. उन्होंने भी एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री की है और उसमें दे लाइक अ लॉट ऑफ नेम्स, जॉन अब्राहम, सुनील छेत्री, ये लोगों का भी इंटरव्यू किया है. उसमें एक कल्याण चौबे का भी बाइट है. इन दैट व्हाट कल्याण चौबे इज, ही सेड दैट इफ इंडियन फुटबॉल हैज नॉट प्रोग्रेस्ड, इट्स नॉट हिज मिस्टेक, इट्स द फेलियर ऑफ द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ द पास्ट, जिस वजह से इंडियन फुटबॉल प्रोग्रेस नहीं कर रहा है. एंड ही इज मेंशन्ड दैट एंड इट्स इन दैट डॉक्यूमेंट्री दैट कल्याण चौबे ब्लेम्स द प्रीवियस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशंस फॉर द फेलियर ऑफ इंडियन फुटबॉल. तो इस पे व्हाट डू यू थिंक, मतलब जस्ट कंक्लूड दिस के क्या फेलियर था जो आज कल्याण चौबे जी को इतनी मुश्किल हो रही है इंडियन फुटबॉल में.
मैंने देखिए वो डॉक्यूमेंट्री नहीं देखी है, बिकॉज आई डोंट नीड टू गो टू अ कतार मीडिया चैनल टू फाइंड आउट व्हाट आर द रूट कॉज प्रॉब्लम ऑफ इंडियन फुटबॉल. एंड आई एम श्योर कोच प्रैड विल एग्री, वी हैव लिव्ड दिस इंडियन फुटबॉल फॉर लास्ट 15-20 years इन एंड आउट. यू नो, अभी हम सैफ चैंपियनशिप की बात कर रहे थे. 2009 में बॉब हॉटन ने अंडर 23 टीम सैफ खेलने के लिए भेजी थी, हमने जीता था सैफ. सुशील सिंह स्ट्राइकर तो उस टीम के कैप्टन हुआ करते थे, यू नो, इररिस्पेक्टिव बाद में उनका करियर नहीं बना, बट वी हैव वन इट. 2018 में स्टीफन कॉन्स्टाइन ने अंडर 23 टीम सैफ लेके गए, जिसमें मनवीर सिंह आपके फाइन बन के निकले थे, आपने सैफ जीता था. अगेन, तो इट्स नॉट समथिंग न्यू, बट वो अगेन वी आर गोइंग बैक इन द सर्कल अगेन एंड अगेन. आप बात करोगे अब कल्याण चौबे की स्टेटमेंट में कि पिछले एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव की प्रॉब्लम थी, ठीक है. अब मैं इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ गोइंग इनटू डिटेल, लेट्स कैलकुलेट व्हाट प्रीवियस एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव हैज डन, राइट. आप 2011 एशिया कप तक की बात मान के चलिए, हमने एएफसी चैलेंज कप जीता था 2008 में एंड वी क्वालिफाई फॉर 2011 एशिया कप, राइट. अंडर द प्रीवियस एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव वी फेल्ड टू क्वालिफाई फॉर 2015 एशिया कप, and we failed badly because our ranking was 173, right? But 2010 they brought a deal from Reliance, IMG Reliance of 50 crores per year for next 15 years. So आप financially deal देखोगे, I think other than BCCI that was the biggest deal in Indian sports, biggest deal, the biggest deal. पैसों के मामले में अगर बात करते हो, राइट? एंड देन 2015 में आपकी रैंकिंग 173 थी, तो वो 2010 से 2015 का आप वो कैलकुलेट एज अ फेलियर कैलकुलेट कर सकते हो नेशनल लेवल पे, राइट? आपकी यूथ टीम्स क्वालिफाई कर रही थी बिकॉज ऑफ द एज फ्रॉड, इट्स वेरी क्लियर. तो उसमें मैं इतना कैलकुलेट नहीं करता बिकॉज उस टाइम पे यूथ टीम्स आपकी क्वालिफाई, वो स्टार आज फुटबॉल भी नहीं खेल रहे हैं. दे वर सपोज्ड टू बी नेक्स्ट बाइचिंग, नेक्स्ट सुनील छेत्री, बट दे आर नॉट इवन प्लेइंग फुटबॉल नाउ. देन फ्रॉम 2015 to 2022, right, when they were this committee or whatever the change, India played 2 Asia Cup, right? We hosted a FIFA Under-17 World Cup. We hosted a Women's World Cup, right? We hosted a Women's Asia Cup in COVID and all. And along that side, our ranking went from 173 to 96, 97. And however we went, where we went. रैंकिंग अब जाती तो आप बोल सकते हैं रैंकिंग आपने मैनिपुलेट करी, पर आपने 2 एशिया कप बैक टू बैक क्वालिफाई किए, कंसीडरिंग आपने 2015 क्वालिफाई नहीं किए थे. अब उसके पीछे फैक्टर भी है कि एशिया कप इंक्रीज होके 24 टीम्स का हो गया था, पहले 16 टीम्स का होता था जब आप 2011 में क्वालिफाई किए थे. ओवरऑल एंड आईएसएल आया, that things were changed, media came, their sponsors came in Indian football, हीरो आया, ग्रासरूट के डेवलपमेंट, बेबी लीग स्टार्ट होने लगी, आपने वुमेन्स लीग लॉन्च करी, यूथ लीग लॉन्च करी, तो देयर वर अ प्रोग्रेस. इट माइट नॉट बी अ वेरी गुड प्रोग्रेस, बट देयर वर थिंग्स व्हिच वाज डन राइट. अगर चीजें गलत हो रही थी तो चीजें ठीक भी हो रही थी पैरेलली. हो सकती है कि 10 चीजें गलत हो रही हो, पर 8 to 10 things are also was getting right. Then happened 2022 Supreme Court case, and we know that how that case happened, everything. Then came Mr. Kalyan Chaubey and his committee. अब आप उसके बाद के अचीवमेंट तो आपके सामने है. आप एशिया कप क्वालिफाई आपने नहीं करा, आपने एशिया कप की बिड करी थी, आपने वो विड्रॉ कर दिया so that संतोष ट्रॉफी मैचेस कैन बी होस्टेड इन सऊदी, बाय द वे, फॉर दैट. ठीक है, आपने बिड विड्रॉ कर दी, राइट? और इंफ्रा आपने जस्ट कुछ साल पहले वर्ल्ड कप होस्ट किया वुमेन्स, दे वर डिसेंट इंफ्रा टू डू द एशिया कप, क्योंकि हमने एशिया कप देखे कैसे होते हैं, राइट? उसके बाद आपकी रैंकिंग, अब आप 140 पे आ चुके हो. बाय द टाइम इनका टेन्योर खत्म होगा, एशियन, अगर खालिद जमील कोच है, आप एशियन कप में हारोगे, आप सैफ में भी हारोगे, आपकी रैंकिंग अगेन 170 में पहुंच जाएगी, और आपको राउंड 1 के क्वालिफायर्स खेलने पड़ेंगे, वर्ल्ड कप क्वालिफायर्स नवंबर 2027 में. सोचिए, जो बैक 2015 में था. उसके बाद अगर आप बात करते हो फाइनेंस की, 50 करोड़ की डील थी जब ये कमेटी आई थी. इनका मेजर मास्टर स्ट्रोक स्टेटमेंट आया था, इनके दोस्त यार सबने मिलकर बोला था कि 500 करोड़ वैल्यू है इंडियन फुटबॉल की ईयरली, राइट? उसमें वो केस करने वाले बंदे भी थे, और उसमें वो जो कमिटी में आगे वो भी थे. तो 500 करोड़ की वैल्यू थी. आज वो गिर के 50 करोड़ से गिर के उस वैल्यू को 12.75 करोड़ की जीनियस की डील आई थी, सिर्फ आईएसएल के लिए. बाय द वे, सिर्फ आईएसएल के लिए 12.75 करोड़. अब बताइए आप कि कैसे इसमें प्रीवियस एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव का फॉल्ट है, और ये पिछले 4 साल में सब कुछ बढ़िया हुआ है, सब चंगासी, पंजाबी में बोलते हैं ना, सब चंगासी. ये तो वही बात है कि बस गलत आप कर रहे हो, फिर दुनिया को बोलो सब चंगासी, सब कुछ बढ़िया है, मैंने तो बढ़िया करा है, बाकी पिछले वालों की गलती है.
पिछले वालों की गलती है, ऑफ कोर्स. तो इस चीज पे डिस्कस कर
एंड अगर आप कोच से ऐड करवाओगे, कोचिंग लाइसेंस की आप बात कर लो कि पहले कैसे लाइसेंस होते थे, कितने मुश्किल से लाइसेंस मिलते थे, प्लेयर्स को, कोचेस को क्या क्या करना पड़ता था, और अब लाइसेंसेस कैसे मिल रहे हैं. तो हर चीज हैज गॉन डाउन, एवरीथिंग हैज गॉन डाउन इन लास्ट 4 years. आप एक एक फैक्टर उठा के देखिए. Only thing which happened under this tenure, I will give them credit for, is the 3 women's team qualifying for the Asia Cup. That's it. उसके अलावा और कोई अच्छा पॉजिटिव काम ऐसा हुआ नहीं है. आप फाइनेंशियली देख लो, आप एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव देख लो, आप नेशनल टीम वाइज देख लो, आप होस्टिंग वाइज देख लो, राइट? आपने जब वो एशिया कप की बिड विड्रॉ करी, इंडिया एंड सऊदी वर रनिंग फॉर इट, एंड आई वाज टोल्ड बाय अदर फेडरेशंस, माय सोर्सेज इन एशियान स्पेशली, वो लोग दे वर they didn't want to play in Middle East, by the way, Asia Cup. They wanted a Asia Cup to come out of Middle East. They were ready to vote for AIFF. That's the reason Saudi called AIFF and asked them to do a joint MAU and everything so that India will withdraw that bid. First, though, they need to tell us कि why we withdraw that bid, हमें मिला क्या, other than hosting those 2 semi-final and 1 final of Santosh Trophy in Saudi Arabia. One off हमने किया था, उसके अलावा हमें क्या मिला है जो हमने bid withdraw करी है.
Anything you would like to add, Coach?
I think one more thing we got from that is I think the pro license group went to Saudi Arabia. I think that was probably the only thing. Yeah, 100%. I mean, everything Ashish said It's 100% true. Like, if you look at this regime, look, it's easy to blame. Like, one thing, I mean, in Kalyan's defense, it's not his fault that we're not qualifying for the World Cup. And there's nothing that he could have done in that short time that would have changed it, right? That's the only thing I can probably say, that when someone puts you on the spot like that and say, oh, as a head. So the easy thing to do is deflect and say the blame is not me, it's on the previous. But we're not going to qualify for the next World Cup, by the way. I can guarantee you that, right? And so then if it's a new regime, should they turn around and say, well, it's Kalyan's fault, right?
Question to coach you, but do you think Asia Cup 2027, who was responsible for not qualifying for Asia Cup? Leave aside World Cup aside, right? We are not qualified for the Asia Cup. So who is responsible for that 2027?
Well, look, all the other failures on the boys' side are this current administration, right? And the women have done very well under 17, 20s in the senior, but it's despite whatever the federation has done, not because of what the federation has done, right? It's not like they've improved under 17 women's and games. There's extensive leagues with IWL or IWL2. There's nothing. They've not made women's football better. It's just the girls have done very well and got the team there. They're still suffering when not getting their just deserves, like with all the other fiascos, like the kit fiasco, this and that, coach fiasco.
But I would definitely like to talk about this, that a World Cup dream of 2034 is heavily being sold on social media, especially on Gen Z platforms like Instagram and Facebook. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you practically look at it as a real?
I said it when I spoke on your show last time. Okay, from a business point of view, it's great, right? I mean, at the moment now, I saw something today, somebody running some camp thing about, look at how the Japanese play. This is why they're going to, because Japan have said they're going to try and win the World Cup in the next. And there's all this Japanese train this way, come train with us the Japanese way. And this camp was in England. I'm like, why would I go to England to train the Japanese way? But so people can market and spin it. So if somebody wants to go out there and say, look, I'm building a squad that's going to help India compete in the 2034 World Cup, come and join this bandwagon. It's a marketing ploy.
But see, last time that we talked, since the video, we had some flaws in the audio, etc. So we did not put out the full video. So I'd like to take you back to the competitions and also that we talked about. So that dream which is being sold right now, the people have looked at the kind of results they have gotten at youth level in these tournaments called Norway Cup, Dana Cup, and Gothia Cup, and Make Cup, all of this. So tell me about these tournaments and how does these tournaments validate that we have a good pool of players, or the players playing out there are talented?
I'll give you my opinion. Like, for a lot of people following Indian football, like stuff like Norway Cup, Dana Cup, Gothia Cup now might be relatively new news to them, right? These tournaments have been around for more than 50 years, especially Gothia and all that. 40 plus years, I think. And when I was coaching about 20 years ago in the US, coaching youth teams and college team and stuff like that, you would put together a team of kids, and it was good business to take kids, girls teams, and go and compete in the Gothia Cup. And my colleague of mine took an under-14 girls team, won the Gothia Cup and came back. And we were like, oh, pretty good, man. And, there's seedings amongst Gothia Cup. You can find your level where you want to play and come back and say you're U14 champion. There'll be multiple U14 champions because there's different levels.
Where did we play? What level
wasn't
did Minerva play?
It wasn't in the top tier, right? It wasn't at the top level. And so then you come back, and I think even the guys who took the team know that. I've spoken to them, and they said, okay, next year we're going to try and compete at a different level. So if they went back over there, there wasn't the story. The story was, let's play at a higher level, and fair play to them to go and challenge themselves and play at a MIC Cup level, which is higher level than Gothia and Dana. And you got a result against a big name team like Liverpool. But then what happened after? I think they lost to a 5th-tier Spanish team, which lost to another team who eventually, I think, were the champions, right? So a lot of hullabaloo has been made. A lot of people, I've had calls from parents saying, is this genuine? Should I join this? And you've got to try and read between the lines and all that, right? And then there's a lot of clamor for saying this guy should play in Bibiano's team and that guy should play in Bibiano's team. And you could even see in the comment section when that match is being played, that when is he being put in? And they were kind of like pressured into putting these players into the squad. And then when we saw them play,
they were put into the squad at the last moment, by the way, coach. Just want to add. At the last moment, the playing 11 got changed, your squad got changed. And what happened in the Asia Cup? Tell us.
Yes, it's. I mean, this is similar to the Pride of Bengal being forced to play inside, right? But you saw them on the field, and they're just not good enough, and they're just not good enough at that level. So they.
Yeah. Okay.
What's happening now is like I see. I mean, I saw some of these boys were also, because when I was in the Philippines, some of these boys had come across over there, and they were trying to integrate into a program and play more. So credit to them for trying to get more exposure for these boys, go outside and play, etc. It's great, but I don't believe that particular group of boys is going to take India to the World Cup. I think they'll probably
also a few days back. One of the Arsenal's, he's a Punjabi origin guy. He's the senior professional scout of Arsenal Academy, and he texted me like, hey, can we connect for a conversation and this, that. So we were having a chat first, like an intro chat, just called him on WhatsApp, and he said that he also mentioned about it. I've seen quite a lot of stuff that people in India are celebrating youth titles. We here in England or other countries where we play professional football at a top level, we celebrate the promotions that have been made to the first team. How many players are we pushing above? How many players are we pushing to the first team? That's what we celebrate. That's our pride. That's our honor that we put forward, that these are the things. So in that context, coach, I would like to ask you that also. Like people have recently got to know about Minerva Academy, which has gone on to win the titles in the countries that we talked about. But they have been into the system for a long time. Have you seen genuine talent coming out of that academy after being into the system for such a long time, and what has been the contribution to the national team?
So I think it's very difficult to ascertain who is genuine like academy product, right? Because there are players who trained elsewhere, come pass through the academy, and then claim to be part of that, because the list is huge. When you look at these players, like I've looked closely at a lot of those boys who played in that Dana, Gothia, Mick, and all that. Hardworking boys, technically decent, and it's almost robotic in the way they play, and they get results. Now, if you're looking at purely scouting, and you look and say, do these players have the decision making? Because if you take, to get that point about what that scout was saying, if you take one of these players out of that system and put them in another team, can they perform? I think they'll struggle, right? If they work in this unit, and they work in the way they play, they press, they work at a high intensity level. It works in those smaller sided tournaments, which are I think 9v9, short format tournaments and all that. So let's not forget, these were not 90-minute 11v11 games, right? You're qualifying for the World Cup, you're going to be playing full on 90 minutes, 11v11, in a bit more of a structure of what you do when you have the ball and when you don't have the ball. It's not just always everything at 100 miles an hour. And the proof is in the pudding. We saw a couple of those players when they were put into the national team, and I think it was Bibiano's team, and they didn't make the impact that.
And that's what people don't see.
That doesn't match the hype. The performance didn't match the hype. Right. Is he doing more than some of the national team academies? Probably, yeah. I mean, I look at some of the training. I've gone and visited the academy. They're quite good in terms of doing things which other academies aren't doing. I think in terms of how they train, they actually have individual training programs. I don't see that at a lot of clubs in Indian football. They do a lot of decent sports science stuff, even visual and other aspects of the game, which you don't see at a AIFF. I haven't seen at AIFF elite academies and other places. So given the players that they have, they will punch above their weight in Indian context. But if you compare like for like players of that age and players of that age in like in Indonesia or let's not even go to Japan and Korea, I don't think people are still knocking on the door and saying, let's get them. Look, at the age they're at, those boys are probably 16, 17 now on paper, right? So if they were that good, like Liverpool beat worthy good, there'd be people knocking and getting their signatures. There's people playing in the World Cup who are 18, 19 years old, right? So I think as a team, it works because they're structured to play a certain way and they'll get results. But you'd like to see them doing well and performing. And I think you need more clubs trying to sort of emulate this model of let's train hard and go and test ourselves abroad. So I'm not going to knock them for going abroad.
Do you think there are certain clubs who are also doing the quality work, but there is not enough loud noise on social media about them, but in silent they're working quite good?
Yeah, look, I think FC Madras have got a pretty decent youth system. I think Reliance have a very good youth development system.
In the last 5 years, if we talk about 5 to 6 years, which academy has contributed to Indian football at the best?
So I think
Ashish,
over the
yeah,
last,
Ashish bhai and both of you can like give your.
I mean, if I look at the national team, right, I look at guys like Sanan who are playing in the national team, right? He's come through Reliance Young Champs Academy. You got a couple of people who come through Round Glass. I think Round Glass have a nice platform for players who've come through the academy could then play in the first team. And let's not forget, you got to give credit to, if they're at Round Glass, they were probably former Minerva a few years ago. So I think they're doing okay. I think FC Goa have a good pathway because just like what your Arsenal scout was saying, it's how many players do you produce that play for the first team. FC Goa has not won the RFDL, the runners up this year, but they've got players like Hrithik, who's now played for India, was been through their youth system and come all the way through, right? So as a club,
they have this local guy called Prachit also who plays in the RFDL team and also is in the senior team.
Yeah, in the senior team. But see, a lot of those guys are in the senior team because the foreigners were reduced this year because of budget restrictions. Would they genuinely be able to hack it at that 7? I don't know. But like over the years, they've always tried. You know, if you look at FC Goa, there's always a lot of kids who've come through their youth system. Some have made it, some haven't, right? Like Devendra, loads of others. I think Bengaluru to some extent. And if you look at non-ISL club academies, I think someone like Classic have done well in terms of producing young players who've gone on to play at a senior level. So Renedy had a lot to do with that academy. My only question is with a lot of these academies is the age of these players. So if you look at the teams that have won on junior, sub-junior, I don't think those players are the correct age. And I've been involved with a couple of clubs who have this stay your age tournaments and everything like that to try and get awareness about trying to keep the age correctly. And now I think Sai has come up with something in the club, like in your registration of your players in the AIFF, where you have to submit certain documents. And I think this is where it'd be useful if, especially because of the first year where Sai has mandated that this has to be there when you're registering a player. I think there should be like other sports have done it, where you have an amnesty and you say, you can admit that your age was changed and come into the system, and so you don't punish. So you don't punish players for being honest, because now I think in the accreditation system, I think the size is very. I'll read it out. It's mandatory for all players registered for national federation system to ensure that they have a DigiLocker verification and all this. And so I think if you have an amnesty and get that, you can go some way towards correcting that, because I think that's a huge factor. Because until then, in this country, you're never truly gonna. Anytime you say, "Oh, that team's doing well, their youth is doing well," people are always going to say, "But they use players from this region." And
अच्छा करेंगे तो हिस्ट्री क्रिएट हो जाएगी. तो वो क्लिप लगा के कि ये देखिए इतनी बड़ी चीज हो गई है क्रिकेटिंग नेशन में है, उसके आगे का पेज
बहुत बड़े पेज ने डाला था
वो इंस्टाग्राम पे वायरल हो रखा है, राइट, एंड इररेलेवेंट. सो आई एम सेइंग अगेन द प्रेजेंटेशन, राइट. अगर इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने वो सैफ वुमेन चैंपियनशिप ऐसे प्रेजेंट किया कि अचानक से कि फुटबॉल में पता नहीं क्या हो गया, तो आम जनता है जिनको नहीं पता, जिनको व्हाट्सएप पे आया कि मोदी जी ने ट्वीट किया, उसके बाद उनके लोकल मिनिस्टर ने भी ट्वीट किया है, फिर उनके एमपी भी ट्वीट कर रहा है, प्रेसिडेंट भी ट्वीट कर रहा है, दे विल थिंक वाओ वी हैव वन सैफ वर्ल्ड कप. सो अगेन द प्रेजेंटेशन, मैं वो कह रहा हूं, दाना कप, गोतिया कप, ये मिक कप, दे आर गुड टूर्नामेंट्स. दे आर नॉट अ वर्ल्ड क्लास यूथ टूर्नामेंट जिनसे आप किसी टैलेंट को जज कर सकते हो. And we all know that what kind of Liverpool team played into it, but they defeated Liverpool team because they're wearing Liverpool badge, right? The presentation of the achievement, how you're presenting it, it's not a treble, it's not a World Youth Championship by them. None of the tournaments World Youth Championship.
Was it a 11v11 tournament, though the match we played against Liverpool, because that's the basic football?
You can see, coach.
From what I was led to believe, it wasn't. And I spoke to somebody at Liverpool. Some of their players are playing up. Like you said, they're more worried about their player development. So their best players of that age group will be playing up. Their idea is to push the players and get them development, not oh, we got a result and all that kind of stuff. But again, see, I don't want to knock it, because I think with all this, whatever the media guys are doing, it's great marketing, right? If your job is
But
to get
you have
more
to
eyeballs,
look at it this way also. You have to look at it this way also. This marketing has led to distracting a lot of football fans. For example,
no, but it's okay.
now
But see, it's raising money, right? If you're a club, it's very difficult in the Indian ecosystem to get funds, right? They're a football club. They need money to do this, to go and play international tournaments and go and fund so many players and all that. They need money. So if you sell a story, make a movie, whatever, and it makes eyeballs and you get money, you're bending the truth a little bit. Look, I'm not saying I'm justifying the whole thing. You win the NBA title in America, which is only American teams playing. They call themselves the world champions. The baseball series over there is called the World Series. No team from outside America, apart from, well, I think Toronto, they've got some Canadian teams. It's called the World Series, right? So marketing, and the Americans are the best at marketing. So you spin this around. When the ISL started, if you remember the commentary, right? This is pre my days of doing comms and punditry for ISL. In the beginning, everything was, oh, this is the best league in the world. This, you had a guy who took a shot from distance, an Assamese player. It didn't go in. David James tipped it onto the crossbar and saved it.
Durga Bora.
Durga Bora's highlights were there. So he remembers the name still, because it was marketed as if like Durga Bora almost scored against David James, and the highlights were there. So truth be told, the ISL in the first few seasons was shit. It was rubbish to watch. It was just like masala football. At halftime, you had celebrities coming and taking penalties, and you had opening ceremonies and there's dances, and foreign players who were just literally at walking pace, and then they'd go out partying, and you hear the stories. It was not proper football, but razzmatazz and everything was there, and sponsors came to it, right? Sponsors were there in the first few seasons of ISL.
Since so I'm just getting these thoughts based on the topic, and sorry to just kind of interrupt in this. So we talked about that we played in Big Cup, which was considered to be the best superior tournament that they have played yet outside, and we played 9-a-side tournament, as you mentioned, against Liverpool. And when these players were put into Bibiano's team, and then they played 11v11 football match, was this one of the reasons why the two of the players struggled?
No. See, I don't think it's 9v9 question of 11v11. Look, why they struggled could be multiple reasons. One is, as Ashish said, they only came into the squad 2 days before. So you've had this long camp, which Bibiano likes with his teams, like a long series of training with his team. And suddenly you put 2 players in. Of course, you're going to understand the rhythm of the way and they play. Secondly, you've got players who play a certain way at club level, where they look to just press every single time. So in their club, it's almost like see ball, attack ball. Like, you see an opposition player with the ball, go and hunt him down and wait, because that's the way their style of play is. Now, if you do that, it's like pressing. If you press alone and then the rest of the team isn't pressing, the whole shape is broken and teams can play through you at the higher level. So you play against the Australias and Uzbekistans and all that. If you've got your holding midfield player who's just wildly going out wide and pressing in wide areas near the fullback, you leave the center exposed. And so it's a style of play thing and all that. So again, the truth will be in the next few years, if you see how many of these boys go on to play at the highest level abroad. Forget India. Right? Players from Minerva have played for ISL teams and played for India and all that. But if the true test now for them will be how many of these players can go and play abroad. It's only when these players are playing abroad. I'm not talking about playing in Premier League or anything, just abroad. So let's say even third tier Germany or second. It's when we start getting to the level where these boys at these academies in India.
Like nobody's are scouts and other scouts not available at these tournaments who could look at these players and give them an offer that?
They were, I'm sure.
So we defeated Liverpool. As you can see here, we defeated Liverpool. But why didn't any scouts give these players opportunity to come up and let's give them a trial or something?
I think you should get the Liverpool coach of that team on your podcast and ask him what he thought of the players and why, etc., because that's not for us. My question is, look, if in the next 5 years, boys who've graduated from under 16 playing at that level are playing at a higher level outside of this country, then we have some hope of playing 2034 World Cup, realistically, right? Because you look at the Japans and Koreas now, who are playing and doing not just qualifying, but competing well in the World Cup. Asian teams haven't lost yet. As of today, all Asian teams have undefeated so far, draws and wins. Those guys are playing in Europe, right? Almost all the Japanese players are playing there, and Korean players are now, playing in the Premier League, and a lot of them look to play in Europe, and they're good enough to play in Europe. And European clubs are actively scouting players, like Celtic in Scotland scouted a player who's come directly from the Japanese college level, not even played J1. Right. So we're not there yet. So yes, it's a great story. It's a great marketing tool to say 2034 World Cup. But I don't think the rest of the world's not going to be asleep for the next 8 years. Right. So much as we'll be beating in a Mick Cup and others, one team doing it is not going to take us to the World Cup. Right. So
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So let's just move on from this topic. I think we have
So
discussed
just to
enough.
sum up
Ashish bhai,
one line, I say
Yeah,
I
please.
don't have any problem with the marketing tool, but I'm saying misleading marketing should not be the way. You market your achievement, but should not mislead it.
And
That's my only problem.
yeah,
but
very
isn't
valid because
all marketing's misleading, right? I mean, like you advertise sugar,
but I think
chocolates
yeah.
and desserts and everything. So
But that's how
advertising
now
is
you see that everywhere now people are getting aware about it.
we're doing the awareness
Yeah.
part. The marketing will continue. Alcohol brands will be there, and tobacco brands and everything like that.
But I want to highlight one more thing, right? So one club I want to highlight, ISL, because उनके fans से बहुत गाली पड़ता है, Kerala Blasters. I think they might not have a full academy setup, like other academies which coach mentioned. But what they have done in last 5-6 years, Kerala Blasters, to get the best talent of Kerala in the under 15 team, and then give them exposure, youth leagues and everything, state leagues, and then progress to the first team. I think only this part, I think Kerala Blasters have done best in the league. And I think they've done better than what other clubs have done to get these kids at the under 15 level, scout them in a Kerala, then make sure they progress from the teams and to the first team. Only problem with the Kerala is the first team is not a stable thing right now, but it's the talent they have brought in, in last 4-5 years. It's fantastic, and I think as you talk about the Arsenal scout and whatever, right? In Europe, it's all about playing for the first team. I think they have done a fantastic job, they don't even have full-fledged academy. I believe if all the clubs can start doing it, get your best state talent under 15 level, make sure you give them their correct age, make sure they have correct coaching, correct diet, correct scientific tools. I think that can change your football. You don't need so many academies to do it. If your clubs can take that initiative, right? And I think that's very important. I just want to highlight just that part because they have done fantastic well. You can list down the debutants for India under 23 team, which came through Kerala Blaster, this system in last 5-6 years. You will see the work they have done is fantastic.
Looking at our under 23 team, let's just talk about the players where are these players coming from. Then they are being put together in the under 23 national team, and they have done well. They have impressed a lot of football fans across the country. So who will you credit for this? Who are the clubs who have actually made this these kind of players, build this kind of players?
See, the work I talked about Kerala Blaster is, I think coach will agree, it's not full-fledged system, but they are bringing results, the result which matter for their club, right? Which is produce player for the first team. And they have done it on regular basis last 4-5 years. Bengaluru FC, again, their youth system is good, but you can still see that, you as a Bengaluru, you want more player to come through from their academy, and which now they're coming through because last season ISL was changed due to external demands. But yeah, you see the more academic kids coming through. Goa have done fantastic job in that regard. Punjab FC, again, they always believe the academic kids can come and make impact at the senior level. Still, they have not given this season. They have not given more debuts, but I think they have a pipeline of talent coming through. I think other than that, you can't say much about. Goa, Kerala, Bengaluru, and Punjab are the 4 clubs who have done it on a regular basis, and then of course Northeast can bring talent. Northeast now last 2-3 years, 2-3 years they've started bringing those talents together again to get the best Northeast talent, and now they are trying to build that pipeline of talent. It was not there earlier, but now they are doing it. So I'm saying, if every club can start doing it, things can change.
The only one thing I'll add to that is I think Reliance Young Champs, they've produced a couple of players as well. And more than the actual academy, the league that they've done, the RFDL Under 21 League, I think that's helped because having that Under 21 League has forced teams clubs to sort of put together under 21 teams, and you need an under 21 league. And the last 4 years, the way that RFDL has progressed, it's given a lot more opportunities for under 21 kids, and you could have a few overage players like 22 and 23-year-olds in the squad, which is reduced over the years. So that league itself has helped our under 23, because it's a perfect platform to go and scout players, and it's a longer format. Like, the players playing in that are playing 20 plus games a season, just RFDL alone. If you make it to the final, you would have played 20 games in the RFDL alone. To some extent. So I think that's a huge thing that's helped the under 23s grow, and it's a model that should be copied at the other age groups.
Yeah, I think we talked about this when I had my first conversation with Ashish Bhai also about
And,
the
and
work that
on
I
the
have done.
RFDL, of course, is a great bonus. But to add on it, the best player for under 23 team are who have played for the first team. So again, they had the RFDL minutes in last 3 years, and because they did so well in the RFDL, the club trusted them and put him in their first team setup. And then they did well there, and then they were the core of the under 23 team. Then along the side, for guys like Harsh Palande, right, Mohammad Saif, they have not made their pro debut yet. While they were playing for the under 23 team, but when they were put it alongside, guys like Fanai, guys like Makatan, guys like Ricky, or guys like all these players who form the core there, right? Then these other kids also started looking good, because your spine have already had a men's football experience, and they had the RFDL experience. Then they have added the first team experience. So I think playing football, it's a very simple game. Number of minutes and the games is the best tool to develop the players. Baki sab cheez additional hai.
Yeah.
The more games you can give to a young player, the better it is.
Okay, so we'll finish this conversation with last two topics to discuss on. First, we'll talk about Indian Super League. Of course, I think a lot of fans were waiting for the, clarity. Even players, coaches, everyone was waiting for a clarity. Ki kya hoga? Will the same thing repeat again? That happened last year. So, as per the current latest news, which has been exclusively revealed by Khel Now, that the sports ministry has backed the club-led model, and club-led model was something which was coming in conflict with AIFF's interest on how they wanted to run the league and how clubs wanted to run the league. So Ashish bhai, tell us a little bit about what does a club-led model mean in simple terms, and will this help Indian club football to develop, at least the top tier that we're talking about, with this going to be implemented? And I think in the IFL it's already there, if I'm not wrong.
या आईएफएल जो सीजन अभी गया है उसमें सारे मेजर डिसीजन जो कमर्शियल डिसीजन थे क्लब्स ने लिए थे, not the AIFF. AIFF was kind of supporting the decision which club has taken. What is club-led model? Club-led model is basically all the sporting integrity side, refereeing, the licensing part and everything is with the AIFF. All the commercial-led decision, which is like broadcast, like a data rights, like sponsorship, like how you want to give your on-ground operations and everything, will be led by a club. A clubs, how they do it, they might hire a CEO, they might make an independent team to do it, right? That's still to be seen. But I'm told that a CEO is likely to be higher, and then the club-led model will be implemented. So see, are ISL club perfect? No. These are the same clubs who have broken salary cap multiple times. These are the same clubs who have committed multiple mistakes. But what the clubs believe right now, that we understand the Indian ecosystem better than a company, Genius Sports, which is sitting in London, doesn't have a India any operation, doesn't have an on-ground operation experience. They are a data technology company. So we are in a better place to do the operation side, do the commercial side of the league as compared to Genius side. That's what club believe. And I think you have to give them credit. That's right, because they have managed their clubs, their own club, own city for last 10 years. So they understand ground reality better than what Genius understand. Genius idea was to depend on AIFF on these kind of stuff, that they will use AIFF experience to handle these kind of shortcoming they have. But then we all know AIFF की capabilities and AIFF की ability हमने देखी already कि क्या कर सकते हैं वो. That's where the club, eventually they wanted to talk to Genius, पर वो बातें हो नहीं पा रही थी, miscommunication था, and then ultimately that there was an entry late, former president की entry हुई, and then the club-led model was kind of approved by sports ministry, and that's put it across that they will manage the league for next 4 years at least. Cut go.
Yeah. Okay, coach, you want to say anything about the recent model that has been backed by the ministry? Is it the right way to go about?
I mean, 100%. I think all of us for a long time have been saying this. I mean, it's the clubs have skin in the game, and if they screwed up, it's on them. So it takes away the whole blame game. And actually, if I was in the AIFF, I would be happy as well, because it's actually a better decision for them. Don't get involved in doing things you're not good at, right? You're the national federation. Focus on developing the national game in India. Don't focus on the top tier league. The FA in England doesn't worry about the Premier League, right? The Premier League runs the Premier League, right? So that's the same way in a lot of countries. Focus on what you need to, which is development of the U teams, the structure in the game, all the other coach education, etc., and then let this run by people who will hire somebody to run it, and then you just take the fee off of them. That's absolutely fine, and nothing wrong with that. And I think it's best for all parties, and hopefully we'll see some positive things in the next 4 years.
Yeah, so right way to like lead the club football in India.
Yeah.
We can agree to it. Yep. Okay. Yeah, Ashish bhai, anything you want to say?
No. I think currently it's the right way because you don't have any other options. Sadly,
Yeah.
that's the best
Okay, so-
option you have. That's my
yeah.
thing. But it's not the ultimate the right thing. But that's the best option we have right now.
So as of today, 15 June that we're talking about, do the clubs have clarity for the next season, and have they started their preparations, like signing and
Yes.
etc.?
Yes, most of them have started. I think on Monday today,
Okay.
the clubs are. I think there has to be a formal agreement between AIFF and clubs soon. It will be announced this week only, maybe tomorrow or after tomorrow. And clubs have already started, preparing their teams for the next season or their renewal contracts and everything. They started doing it because there is no going back from what is agreed in the front of the sports minister. Last season also only happened when all the details were agreed in front of sports minister. उसके बाद आप उनके अगेंस्ट तो नहीं जाओगे, तो most probably people are thinking that now it is agreed. Of course, the formal papers are still need to be done, but I think it should be done in today or tomorrow. This week it has to be formalized and it will be announced.
Yes, so we'll move from this topic to the last topic, and I think this is something that I wanted to discuss in detail as well, because this has kind of given a spark amongst Indian football fans of a little bit of hope and faith for the future, and that is the sports passport thing. I think again, Khel exclusively revealed that the ministry has sent a proposal to the Prime Minister's office for sports passport that would help the overseas players to play for the national team in the future. I would like to start with Coach Pradhyum. Do you think that would help Indian football?
So yes and no. The reason I'm saying that is, look, there's a lot of data to show countries like Philippines, Indonesia, other Southeast Asian countries that have done this, and even in the past, countries like Japan had Brazilians that were naturalized and given this as a short-term boost. But you look at Japan and others that did it, they also developed their own league at the same time and invested heavily in the right systems and processes, right? I think recently Baichung and a couple of others said we should look at the Uzbek model and all that, where they haven't done this, right? So what you got to be careful is they think the way the people are proposing it, your Kalyan Choubes of this world think it's some kind of a silver bullet, right? So all of a sudden now, let's say we can get this passport where, see, the ultimate thing, the issue is the same. If I have an OCI card and I have a foreign passport, I can get an Indian passport by staying here or family heritage, whatever the reasons. Relatively, the question is you have to give up your passport, and most players in England and Australia or wherever of Indian origin are reluctant to probably give up their passport. So this sports passport will have to be effectively giving dual nationality, right? So if that happens, then can we put 11 together of players that are playing in the second tier of English football or third tier of English football in Europe, in Holland, in Australia, etc., and put together a team? Now, suppose we put this team of all expats, right, or all PIOs, OCI card holders, like what Philippines has. Philippines team at the moment, men's team, is pretty much all non-Philippines based players. Is there a guarantee that we'll get out? We'll win the SAF Cup, that I'll guarantee. Right? The SAF World Cup we will win. But will we guarantee to qualify for the Asian Cup? Probably should, right? Given the right coach, if we change the coach.
Won't it bring in better quality in the national team game?
No, no, that's what I'm saying.
all
So,
the way that
so we'll have a better team.
players.
Yes, if we have, as long as we're not like falling and time wasting and looking for long throws, we will have a
Yeah.
better national team, and we might qualify for back-to-back Asian Cups, right? Will we qualify for an Asian Cup? I mean, sorry, for a World Cup? I'm not 100% sure because I don't see that many top-level players
Yeah.
of Indian diaspora abroad. Now, secondly, now if let's say we qualify for the next two back-to-back Asian Cups and we have a good World Cup qualifying run with these PIO or OCI players, will anybody watch the ISL? What's the role for young Indian players and saying, well, I'm not going to get into the team. I can be the best player in the ISL. I'm not making the national team, or I'll
So
just be a
won't
squad
that
player.
won't that push for the players to move to other levels where they can get a better they will have to push their game forward. For example, go to
That's-
Spain or go to other European countries, third division, fourth division. They can go and push their level.
It's not easy. They're not
That
going to.
will.
They're not going to get the work
Okay.
permits, right? Unless we're in the top 70. So it's one of those kind of chicken and egg things. Now, I've seen in Southeast Asia, ASEAN countries where national team coaches don't watch their local league, don't even stay in the country. They're just watching games in Europe because all their players are Europe based or Europe. So it could be very detrimental to the local league and the ecosystem if you don't do things in parallel. I'm not against this whole sports passport OCI thing, but I'm saying don't think it's a silver bullet that's going to solve all the problems. Do it in conjunction with something else. Don't ignore developing the game in India and
See,
do
I
this
think
only. But unfortunately, they will
I
only.
think
That's what will happen.
yeah,
That's what I'm worried about.
I think the core thing to this is, I think, talking from a fan's point of view, and what I have been like reading a lot of comments, listening to a lot of people, and they've said ke or development, youth development, grassroots, we have been hearing for years and years and not been happening. Nothing has progressed, and we still keep hearing about it. We have to focus on this, focus on this. We are losing our interest from this game. So, for those short-term fixes in the senior national team, don't you think that this will be a great option?
Go on, Ashish.
See, I believe that you have to do both things collectively. See, we have enough example, coach highlighted. We have
Exactly.
seen Afghanistan team. Pakistan diaspora of player is better than us, by the way, right? Their player are playing a better level than us. They have more options to call up the players than us. Okay. Philippines example is famous example. They at a time they used to have a 15, 20 players playing in Europe. They were in the Philippines team. See what they have done. What they have done. They have gone to the World Cup qualifiers further. No. So you have to have a solid domestic system to back up your OSI and PIOS players. I see this as a way like ISL team. Like ISL team, in a playing 11, you have a 7 Indian players and 4 foreigners. Same way, what I see that you don't need a 11 PIOs. You need a 4 or 5 very good PIOs who can make your Indian player around you look better. But that also means you have to keep producing those domestic talents. Because the domestic, and again I am not questioning somebody की देशभक्ति उनकी ज्यादा कम है, पर जो आपके हार्डकोर डोमेस्टिक सिस्टम से निकल के आ रहा है उसके लिए वो नेशनल कैप इज अ बिग अचीवमेंट, राइट? पीआईओज एंड वगैरह, क्योंकि उनका सिस्टम अलग है भाई, वो टेक्निकली बेटर है बिकॉज वो एक्सपोजर बेटर मिल रहा है. सो इवेंचुअली उनके लिए नेशनल कैप इतनी बड़ी अचीवमेंट नहीं होगी क्योंकि वो एक साल पहले तो एलिजिबल भी नहीं थे उस चीज के लिए. तो मेरा ये मानना है कि दोनों को बैलेंस करके चलना बहुत जरूरी है, प्लस अ सिस्टम बिहाइंड योर नेशनल टीम. अगर नेशनल टीम के कोच यही है, नेशनल टीम की कमिटी, टेक्निकल कमिटी आपकी यही है, टेक्निकल डायरेक्टर आपका यही है, आपके जो लॉजिस्टिक डिपार्टमेंट है वही है. अब यन हांडा का टिकट करवाना है किसी को स्कॉटलैंड से, फॉर एग्जांपल उसको हांगकांग जाना है खेलने के लिए, और यन हांडा का टिकट टाइम से नहीं हुआ, गलत फ्लाइट बुक हो गई, फिर क्या होगा मुझे बताइए? फिर कर लोगे आप क्वालिफाई? तो अल्टीमेटली जो आपका सिस्टम है, चाहे वो डोमेस्टिक प्लेयर्स हो, चाहे वो डोमेस्टिक लीग हो, कोचिंग हो, technical staff हो, non-technical staff हो, they also need to pull up their socks and do better. Then only the PIOs and OSI can do anything for Indian football. आप 15 PIOs ले आओ, same coaching staff रखो, मैं बता रहा हूँ आप इससे बुरा खेलोगे जो अभी खेल रहे हो.
100%. I think I think when we had a conversation with Igor also, he also mentioned the same thing about the requirement of the overseas players, and then it gets you closer to the destination, and then there is that difference of coaching staff, support staff around that team, and exactly at what Ashish bhai has said. I want to like hear from you, Ashish bhai, ki sports passport in particular hai kya? What is it like when we mention sports passport? It is like the dual citizenship, or what it is?
So, like Coach Brad has mentioned, that dual citizenship India में allowed नहीं है, and that's the reason these OSI and PIOS players have not played for India. Only way to play for India is to live in India for 2 years, apply for Indian passport, and then play. Two examples: Arata Zumi, who did it back in 2012, and Ryan Williams, who did it now. But who are these? Both of them, they are the players who are the early 30s and taken the passport. So their career was already done. That's now what is sports passport idea was. Of course, it's pushed by Mr. Kalyan Chaube, current president, but it is already done by Qatar. Turkey does it. Bahrain does it. If you see Bahrain in Olympics, the most of the long distance running medals Bahrain wins. Most of the athletes are from East Africa, right? So they give them a sports passport and they play for them, and then eventually they win medals for them, but they never get a citizenship right in the particular country. Qatar is the same story. I met with one of the Qataris medalist in Olympics. It was off the record meeting, of course. Back in during the Asia Cup 2023, if I'm not, 2022 mein mila tha, and he won the Olympic medal for Qatar, by the way. But he never had a Qatari citizenship. He had a sports passport which allowed give him access or identity to play and represent Qatar. But once his playing career was done, that was taken. So he was gone back to his own country, right? So that's one idea. That's how the Middle East country does it. So what AIFF and Indian government are saying with the Olympics coming, right? It's not just football. It's also about आप Olympic host करोगे, आप football में किसी से 7-8-0 नहीं हारोगे, right? That will be like a very bad for your country and sports. Same in basketball. These are global sport, right? Same in baseball. These are whatever sports are there in Olympics. Government want to see that how they can improve the performance. Football, of course, पहले से ही बहुत बड़ी डिबेट है इस बारे में कि आप OSN PIO प्लेयर्स को आप साइन कर सकते लेके आ सकते हैं तो इंडियन टीम बेटर हो जाएगी. And this debate goes back to last 10 years. It was there in Stephen Constantine team. I remember India lost against Guam in Guam, by the way. And Guam is not a country, right? It's like colony of a US. So there most of the player plays in the lower level in US. And हम हारे थे, अगले दिन न्यूज़पेपर में बड़ा सा आर्टिकल आ गया था AIFF की तरफ से कि हमें भी OSN PIO प्लेयर्स चाहिए. But that was also wrong because Guam को हराने के लिए आपको OSN PIO प्लेयर चाहिए. What I'm trying to say is, what I see that आपको ये OSN PIO प्लेयर्स चाहिए आपको लास्ट फेज जब आप एशिया कप में थे 2023. आप एशिया कप विद डोमेस्टिक प्लेयर आर यू गोइंग. इस बार नहीं गए, दैट्स अ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव फेलियर. ठीक है, अदर देन कोचिंग फेलियर. आप एशिया कप जाने के लिए PIO आपको अगले स्टेप में चाहिए. मुझे लगता है कि अगर आप अपना डोमेस्टिक स्ट्रक्चर स्ट्रॉन्ग रखें, सपोर्ट सिस्टम स्ट्रॉन्ग रखें, then 4 या 5 PIOs in your squad can make an impact and put India into the round 3 of the World Cup qualifiers, जो आज तक हम कभी नहीं गए. So that will be the next step. Then you improve your scouting more for these PIOs. Then you improve your domestic system more. Try to get this player as early as possible. I'll give you an example, right? कल मोरक्को का मैच था ब्राजील से, कल या परसों. तो 18-year-old the midfielder, I think Bahudi's name, right? He played for Morocco. 3 months ago, he's playing for the France under-21 team. So Morocco Federation went and convinced him to change his passport and everything in 3-4 months to play for Morocco in the World Cup. So वो उस स्टेज पे पहुंच चुके हैं, पर हमें पहले स्टार्ट करना है. तो पहले क्या कि आपको ये फ्रेमवर्क लेके आना है, get these players in, then make a domestic system very strong, support system very strong around the national team, and then go to the round 3 of the World Cup qualifiers. जब round 3 जाओगे ना, then you can see, can you call up players who have a chance of representing that particular country जहां वो रह रहा है and India. Then you ask him to pick India over that country. उनको दिखाना पड़ेगा कि higher level
show him the opportunity.
Yeah, then show him opportunity. अब जैसे for example इस World Cup की बात करते हैं, right? There's a Kerala kid in Qatar. There is Indian kid in DR, not Indian kid, but Kerala kid is literally have an Indian passport, by the way. He's playing for Qatar. If you ask him right now, do you represent India or Qatar? Sporting wise, अगर देशभक्ति को साइड रखो, it has to be Qatar. Qatar is playing all the Asia Cup. Qatar is qualifying for the World Cup. So nobody in the right mind choose India. आप sporting wise बात करते हो, तो again आपको step by step लेना पड़ेगा. And OSI and PIOs should not be paper over cracks, as Coach Brady said. There are bigger problems in Indian football, but this should come parallelly. I'm not against it. This should come parallelly, but आपको अपना domestic structure लीग का, ग्रास रूट का, आपको अपना नेशनल टीम का कोचिंग स्टाफ, टेक्निकल, नॉन टेक्निकल, एंड द सपोर्ट स्टाफ लाइक ए लॉजिस्टिक डिपार्टमेंट एंड एवरीथिंग नीड टू बी फिक्स्ड along that side. Then only these PIOs and OCI can make any impact, because as a given example of Afghanistan, for example, they never went to the next step. They had all these diaspora players. Pakistan is example. Philippines is another example which coach Pred will know better than me, because
Pakistan, by the
went
way,
on and
defeated Afghanistan in their recent tournament, Diamond Jubilee sub tournament that they played.
it's like a mini SAF. I don't count these as a game, because उसमें अफगानिस्तान के कौन से प्लेयर है, कैसे प्लेयर है, nobody knows. So that's what I'm saying, right? Diaspora player से पाकिस्तान 200 रैंक पे है. Of course they were banned. अफगानिस्तान की आप रैंकिंग देखो, फिलीपींस का देखो ना. फिलीपींस इज अ मेजर एग्जांपल. फिलीपींस के तो एक टाइम पूरी स्क्वाड आउटसाइड फिलीपींस थी. देयर वर प्लेयर्स प्लेइंग इन इंग्लैंड चैंपियनशिप जो फिलीपींस के खेल रहे थे. सो just having your PIOs and diaspora player doesn't mean you will do well in football. You have to have a better structure around it to make sure you do well. Like Morocco example I've given, they have done it very well, right? Indonesia is another example who came close to the World Cup. They have done very well aggressively, but that doesn't mean they have stopped improving their domestic league. Indonesian league is still competing with it was above ISL one time ago, and now they're cutting the status back. It went down because the FIFA ban and there was lots of corruption happened, but now they're getting the status back in Asia. It's a developing league, and they're again improving the league also, alongside bringing those Dutch players to represent to Indonesia.
So what I can understand and try to conclude for the fans is, yes, we can definitely go with the OCI players, but at the same time, you cannot overlook the problems in your domestic system. You need to have a strong domestic setup. And for us to defeat countries like Bangladesh, like the SAF region countries, and all of these countries, if you still depend on overseas players, then there are major problems than just trying to look for overseas players. So that's basically the conclusion. So no one, like, it's not that you guys are against it, but you guys want, like, just like hype we talked about on social media, all of these things, the hype should not overshadow the real problems that's in Indian football. Agree? Yeah. Yeah. So let's end this discussion with a final message for the fans. So I just want you guys to speak your heart out about Indian football and give a message to anyone who is watching it.
Yeah, I think, look, for me, this happens every 4 years. You always get these questions about the World Cup, and all of a sudden everyone has an opinion, and it'll last for a month and then it dies down afterwards. And I think the biggest conversations need to happen after the World Cup and not during it. And we need to start introspecting and see what we can do better. There's a lot of things that are going right. We always focus on the things that are going poorly. I think we've got to build on how well the women's teams are doing and use that as a benchmark to say, if they can qualify for under 17, under 20 and the Asian, that should become the regular, not something that was a one-off. It should become the norm with them. And then I think the boys should try and match that, where we're consistently qualifying for under 17, under 20 and Asian Cups back to back. When we start to qualify at a continental level consistently, I think then we can really dream of going one step further. And for that to happen, I think stakeholders have to be involved. Everyone has to be aligned in understanding that you've got to put youth development at the forefront. And that's both for boys and girls in the country. You have to put youth development first and foremost. And it always comes on whenever we've had these discussions, and it did again today. The simplest way for that is, look, we can hundreds of solutions. Everyone has hundreds of ideas on what they can do, etc., etc. But the most simplest thing that we need is more games. We need to be playing 20 to 40 games a season at a bare minimum at every single age group, from U8 all the way up to 18. You guys just got back from Mizoram recently, and you saw how those kids are playing, or they're targeting to play those many games in a season. It's great that they're doing that in Mizoram. Can we replicate that model in more than one state? If we get to the level where we can do that in 4 or 5 states in India, that's a step in the right direction. And if we can see our kids playing 20 to 40 games, like I said, a season, in a full calendar season, then hopefully in the next 10 years, those kids will have that sort of mileage of football under their belt, and we can just see genuine progress. And then the rest of it is just noise. Federations will come and go, different people will be in charge, different coaches, etc. All of that is the white noise around it. But the main thing is, if you want grassroots to involve, you have to start there, and it can't be just a token conversation. It has to be something that's seriously done. So yes, passports, OCIs, etc., etc. All of that stuff is like the steroid boost to it. But you can take as much, creatine and protein and steroids as you want. If you don't go to the gym, you're not going to build any muscle. It's not going to happen overnight, right? There you go. So, put the hard work in as well. And I think that's what everyone needs to do in the ecosystem, is put the hard work in.
Yeah, I think that a very practical solution, Ashish bhai, as a long serving Indian football journalist. By the way, मेरे को ये अवधेश बता रहा था, मैंने I asked him कि भाई यार मतलब लोग इंडियन फुटबॉल पे उतना फोकस करते नहीं, और आशीष भाई मतलब इतना रेगुलरली कंसिस्टेंटली इतना लंबा लंबा सेशन करते हैं, इसके पीछे क्या मतलब क्या बात है? तो ही टोल्ड मी कि वो कभी कभी होता क्या कि मतलब जब डिमोटिवेटेड रहते हैं तो ही जस्ट से कि ओके आज लास्ट ख़त्म करो, ये करो वो करो, बंद करते हैं एंड नेक्स्ट डे फिर बैठ जाते हैं इंडियन फुटबॉल पे। आप ही के थ्रू कितने सारे एक्सक्लूसिव न्यूज़ आते हैं जो ब्रेक होते हैं मीडिया में, एंड देन फैंस गेट टू हियर अबाउट इट, टॉक अबाउट इट, discuss about it. So thank you so much for doing that. And if you could just tell us your thoughts.
See, every day like a normal, because I don't count me as I'm a big shot in Indian football. I always say I'm an Indian football fan. And every day when there's a bad stuff happen, bad result happen or bad thing happen, I go home very disappointed, When I take a shower or going home, I feel that, what I have done with myself, right? Last 15 years getting involved with this, and then, I think that's it. But next day when I wake up, it's another day, another sunshine day, then I think I have some responsibility, right? If other people can't feel the responsibility, can't take some responsibility, मेरी जो responsibility है मैं लूँगा. And if I can raise questions, if I can put those questions through my platform, on a public domain, which might, bring some changes. It has brought those changes in past, but not at the big level though. क्योंकि मेरे questions ज़्यादा किसी के कान पे पड़ते नहीं है. But yeah, every day then I come back, I said I will do my job, and I feel that मेरे पे कोई मैसेज नहीं है लोगों को देने के लिए. मैं ये बोलना चाहता हूँ कि as a fan, you do your job, which is go to a local football match and watch it on a ground. It's easier to be a fan on a Twitter, on an Instagram, and on a Facebook, say I'm a football fan, and then you have never watched a local football match in your state, in your city, or a district. I think that's the fans की क्या responsibility होती है world wide, local fan की, कि अपने local club को support करता है, किसी भी level पे हो, छोटा हो, बड़ा हो, पर local football देखता है. I think when we all start doing it, that कि जो हमारी responsibility है, चाहे फुटबॉल फैन की जगह, चाहे जर्नलिस्ट की जगह, चाहे कोच की, जैसे टेक्निकल डायरेक्टर, प्लेयर्स, AIFF, गवर्नमेंट, जब हर कोई अपनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी उठाएगा ना, आई थिंक देन द फुटबॉल विल चेंज. वी नो फुटबॉल इज नॉट, आई ऑलवेज से, इट्स नॉट अ सुपर साइंस, इट्स नॉट अ केमिकल फॉर्मूला कि आपको लैब में बनाना है. कुछ चीजें हैं, बेसिक चीजें जो आपको करनी है, और जिसके एग्जांपल्स कोच प्राइड दे रहे हैं, हम दे रहे हैं. हमने डॉक्यूमेंट्री निकाली, वो नौपांग लीग का बताने का तरीका, मतलब like a normal thing, we were invited for a Nopang League, हम जाते, 4 इंटरव्यूज करते, वीडियो बना के डाल देते, खत्म, हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी खत्म थी. बट आई टोल्ड माई टीम कि आई वांट टू, बिकॉज दिस लीग आई थिंक कुड बी अ मॉडल फॉर टू डेवलप आवर ग्रासरूट फुटबॉल. So I told my team, take your time, put resources into it. We might not make any money out of it, but we want to give a message to all the state federations, government, all the CSR funds कि this is the way, this is how football is developed. जो आप कोशिश करते हो कि बच्चों को फुटबॉल गिफ्ट कर दी, किक करवा दिया, that's not what grassroots program is. This is what a grassroots program look like. This might not be a perfect, but at least India के overall stature में this can fit. तो वही, again, as I said, we're taking our responsibility, we are doing our part. If everybody of us, including fans, can start doing their own part, go to the ground, support their team, चाहे local team हो, चाहे ISL हो, चाहे I-League हो, and then maybe, that will bring a change, because football will need to become a economy, football need to become like a business also. Without business, no sport can become big anywhere in the world, right? तो आपको सारी चीजें डेवलप होनी चाहिए.
Yeah, you can like talk about Kerala Blasters also, like their fan group. They have not won anything in from the time they have came into existence, but you see the local support that they get from their fan.
And I will say local support plus the question they ask to the clubs. The pressure they put the team management about their academy, youth team, when they shut down the women's team, they kept on asking. You can say that, कोई बोलते हैं कि यार वो पागलों की तरह follow कर रहे हैं, but then they started asking these questions. Now they're not blindly trusting their team management owners. They started asking, हम ये क्यों कर रहे हैं, ये क्यों नहीं, इस coach को क्यों नहीं, and I think that's where the impact started happening. Now any decision Kerala Blaster makes, they have to think about the fan reactions also, by the way, कि fan को वो चीज ठीक लगेगी नहीं लगेगी, उसको कैसे present करें. I think that's where the fans मुझे पूछते हैं लोग कि मैं क्या करूं. मुझे बहुत ट्विटर पे, इंस्टाग्राम पे डीएम आते हैं, we could have loved to help. I will just say same thing, watch football from the ground. That will change, because that eventually will make football a bigger thing in India, right? अगर ग्राउंड में लोकल लीग्स में आता है, right? कुछ स्टेट्स हैं, कोल्हापुर में आता है, केरला में सेवंस में आता है, नॉर्थ ईस्ट में क्राउड है, बट इट हैज टू बी एट ऑन अ रेगुलर बेसिस. तो आई थिंक इफ दैट इज डन बाय द फैंस, आई थिंक थिंग्स माइट चेंज. बट नहीं तो बाकी यही सब चलता रहेगा. 10 year down the line, Shagil will be a big shot somewhere, and me and Prad with all the grey hairs will giving again ज्ञान, ऐसा करते हैं वैसा करते हैं, nothing will change.
I think great to learn from Kerala Blasters, Bengaluru, Mohun Bagan East Bengal, Northeast United also you can see, and recently you can take the example of Sporting Club Delhi also in the efforts that they are putting into trying to attract fans. So I think great way. And as we conclude this discussion by saying if everyone takes their responsibility from the top of the top stakeholder to the fans, then definitely we can see Indian football moving to the right direction. So with that, we come to the end of today's conversation. Thank you so much, Ashish bhai, and thank you so much, Coach Pradhyum, for joining us today, and hope to see you again.